Chapter 643, Plundering. Patriarch Reliance hesitated. Without Meng Hao's direct statement, he wouldn't have allowed him to enter, but he glanced at the sea and back at the city. Finally, he clenched his teeth violently. "This is the last time," he said. If Meng Hao pulled more tricks, he'd flee with the land. Meng Hao headed toward the city at top speed. Shops had closed, leaving cultivators confused. Commotion erupted. Meng Hao's arrival attracted little attention. He picked an open area and sat cross-legged. Waving his sleeve, countless magical items appeared before him and flew out, casting bright glow in all directions. Thousands of magical items glowing resplendently caught bystanders' attention. Gasps could be heard. Discussion erupted. So many magical items. How does he have so many? From chi condensation to nascent soul, everything. He sacked a shop, all new not used. People approached to examine the items floating around Meng Hao. Meng Hao listed prices quickly, original amounts multiplied several times over. Then he closed his eyes and sat silently. More people crowded around, eyes glittering. Some wanted to buy, but prices were high. Many cursed inwardly. A crowd grew quickly. With shops closed, Meng Hao's display attracted most cultivators. Few were willing to buy at his exorbitant prices. Meng Hao felt no anxiety. In fact, he wanted to stretch time out. Patriarch Reliance, however, grew nervous watching from his palace. Evening fell. Of the thousands of items, Meng Hao had sold only a few. Patriarch Reliance worried incredibly. "This is the last time," said Patriarch Reliance, stamping his foot. He sent divine sense into several city dwellers. Before long, 7 or 8 cultivators approached Meng Hao's stall at top speed, causing disturbance. "I want 500 magical items," said an old man, tossing out a bag. Meng Hao's eyes opened. He looked at the man, slowly opened the bag, removed all spirit stones and counted them one by one. After checking, he waved his sleeve, sending 500 items toward the old man. The old man's face twitched as he gathered items and left. Another person approached and purchased in the same fashion. "That's the auspicious pavilion manager. He has considerable standing and close ties to the Footloose sect. Why's he buying from this guy?" "That's the Chen Manor shopkeeper." Crowds watched in astonishment as the 7 or 8 cultivators spent nearly 2 hours purchasing. Soon, all items were gone. Of course, Meng Hao's meticulous counting of every spirit stone slowed the process. Otherwise, he could have sold everything in moments. Considering the spirit stones Meng Hao acquired, the crowds eyed him greedily like hungry wolves. Meng Hao calmly secured all spirit stones into his bag. In total, he'd acquired several 100,000, making his trip profitable. He rose slowly and sighed. Patriarch Reliance's patience broke as Meng Hao shot up as a beam of light. 4 or 5 cultivators below took out Jade slips and sent voice transmission. Moments later, 3 core formation cultivators flew out from a secret location. At the same time, an old man in a red robe sat cross-legged on a ship near shore. His eyes suddenly opened, glowing brightly. Early nascent soul cultivation ripples emanated from him. He was threatening without showing anger. His eyes opened and produced a glowing jade slip. When he sent divine sense into it, his eye narrowed. "A cultivator with hundreds of thousands of spirit stones," said the man coolly, rising. "Only core formation cultivators can fly here. He sold items for chi condensation and foundation establishment, not nascent soul. He's core formation. Likely great circle, but to me he's an insect." He smiled slightly. "If I get hundreds of thousands of spirit stones, this trip won't be wasted." He used minor teleportation, vanishing and reappearing above Saint's Island. After confirming his position, he flew. Meng Hao frowned, flying midair. He couldn't think of another reason to stay and felt banished. He wasn't happy. After all, his Tao protector was doing the banishing. "I should have thrashed that turtle more in the demon immortal pagoda," he muttered angrily. He proceeded, watching the seashore approach. Patriarch Reliance grew incredibly excited. Anticipation filled his eyes watching Meng Hao leave. "He's leaving, finally leaving, ha ha ha, excellent." The more he thought, the happier he felt. He even hummed a little tune. If Meng Hao were there, he would instantly recognize that tune. It was the very same tune Patriarch Reliance had hummed back in the Reliance sect. 1. Both Patriarch Reliance and Meng Hao hummed the same tune back in chapters 84 and 85. Currently, Meng Hao's face was unsightly. The sea was clearly visible off in the distance, but he still couldn't think of a reason to stay behind. Even as he was beginning to hesitate, a whistling sound could be heard from behind him. When Meng Hao heard the sound, he was instantly both surprised and very happy. He quickly looked back to see 3 beams of light shooting toward him. An expression of joy appeared on his face. In the same moment that Meng Hao turned to look back, a cold voice could be heard coming from one of the 3 pursuers. "Fellow Taoist, please slow down for a moment." The 3 pursuers were middle-aged men, one of whom was in the mid-core formation stage. The other 2 were in the early core formation stage. They flew through the air very quickly and arrived in the blink of an eye. Back in his palace, Patriarch Reliance watched on in shock. "What are you people doing?" Meng Hao shouted, shrinking back. The eyes of the 3 men glittered with killing intent. The mid-core formation cultivator looked Meng Hao over closely. Earlier, he had been somewhat hesitant because of not being able to clearly see Meng Hao's cultivation base. Now, though, it was obvious to him that it was at the early core formation stage. Furthermore, Meng Hao's words and expression seemed to be filled with alarm, which left the man feeling even more calm. "The 3 of us would like to borrow something from you, fellow Taoist," said the man with a false smile. "Hopefully you can help us achieve our aim." With that, the other 2 moved to surround Meng Hao. The eyes of all 3 radiated ill intentions as they coldly stared at Meng Hao. The greed in their eyes couldn't be more apparent. What do you want to borrow?" Meng Hao replied hurriedly. "Just some spirit stones, that's all," said the man with a smile. "Fellow Taoist, you have several 100,000 spirit stones in your bag of holding. Do you mind loaning them to us?" As he spoke, killing intent glittered in his eyes, just when he was reaching out to attack. "Okay, I agree," said Meng Hao. He slapped his bag of holding and instantly caused hundreds of thousands of spirit stones to fly out. The sight of so many spirit stones instantly caused the 3 cultivators to stare, panting. For the time it takes half an incense stick to burn, a sound almost like the gurgling of water could be heard as the spirit stones poured out onto the ground. Soon, they had formed together into something like a small mountain. Even though it was evening, the spirit stones glittered and shone, causing the eyes of the 3 men to shine brightly. However, as Meng Hao was backed up, the tip of one of the magical items from the demon immortal sect suddenly appeared. Meng Hao's face fell, and he quickly covered it up. "Ha ha ha," said the middle-aged man, his eyes flashing. He was all smiles as he spoke, although he was working hard to control the excitement inside of him. "Fellow Taoist, you seem to be in such a good mood, so I hate to tell you that in addition to spirit stones, I also happen to need some magical items. I noticed just now that you have some inside your bag of holding. Hand it over now for me to take a look." The other 2 were palpating with eagerness at how rich they were about to become. Meanwhile, back in the palace, Patriarch Reliance was panting, his eyes filling with rage as he clenched his fists tightly. He wanted nothing more than for Meng Hao to leave as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, these blind fools dared to intercept Meng Hao and delay him. This was enough to cause Patriarch Reliance to explode like lightning. "Are they looking to die?" roared Patriarch Reliance, waving his hand out. At the same time, the 3 people surrounding Meng Hao in the very midst of their most ultimate excitement suddenly began to tremble. The sound of someone roaring exploded out in their minds. Then in the blink of an eye, their eyes went wide and their bodies burst into pieces. A haze and blood and gore filled the air, which rapidly vanished into nothing. Meng Hao smiled bitterly, then moved to collect up the spirit stones on the ground. However, it was at this point that he suddenly smiled excitedly once again. Off in the distance, a beam of light approached him at top speed from the direction of the ocean. It was the early nascent soul stage old man. "Take out your spirit stones and—" "Huh!" Even as the old man's cold voice rang out, he suddenly gasped. He had just seen the huge spirit stone mountain laying there on the ground. This chapter was sponsored by Damien Hyatt. Chapter 644, Patriarch Save Me. "Another one?" Patriarch Reliance's rage flared. He was incredibly indignant. After all he'd done to send Meng Hao away, he'd almost succeeded. Yet at the critical moment, blind fools kept stirring trouble. Patriarch Reliance feared Meng Hao would seize a new chance to stay. His rage burned skyward. He almost crushed the newcomer when a tremor ran through his body. He looked up, rage gone from his face. His easily changeable mood with Meng Hao was replaced by serious expression. He stared into the sea's depths. Next to him, guiding Trirane felt a strange feeling. Her expression flickered. The boat spirit appeared soundlessly and also looked off into the distance. Meanwhile, the old nascent soul cultivator saw the huge spirit stone pile and his heart trembled. Glancing around, seeing nothing unusual, he turned to look frowning at Meng Hao. Meng Hao looked back and laughed as their gazes met. The scene gave the old cultivator a strange sensation. He felt something fishy and immediately backed up. He was about to speak when Meng Hao's face flickered. He jerked his head toward the distance while his entire person erupted with intensely fierce aura. He didn't grow larger, but seemed indescribably huge to the old man, who felt like a bug. The explosive aura caused the old man to tremble and pant. His eyes went wide with disbelief, his mind roaring. Great circle nascent soul, he thought, trembling, blood drained from his face. Meng Hao's aura continued rising, breaking through a barrier. Wind and clouds surged, sky and land dimmed. Thunder crackled. His energy swept thousands of kilometers. A vortex appeared and spun, connecting heaven and earth. Rifts appeared as if the world couldn't handle the explosive power. Spirit severing. The old man felt like a tiny leaf in the raging sea or a boat crushed into pieces. His mind buzzed blank, his face drained of blood until he looked almost dead. His body trembled as he stared wide-eyed at the vortex and Meng Hao, who looked almost like an immortal. I tried to rob a spirit-severing eccentric. His trembling was replaced by astonishment and indescribable fear. The turn of events left him discombobulated, the most insane thing he'd ever done. He was suddenly glad he hadn't finished speaking. Perhaps he still had time to leave. Senior, he began stammering when Meng Hao flicked his sleeve. Instantly, all spirit stones vanished. Ignoring the nascent soul cultivator, he flew up and looked off into the distance. A long beam of light shot across the sky, capable of splitting heaven and earth. Rumbling filled the air. A white-robed cultivator became visible, middle-aged with hands clasped behind his back, striding through the beam. His hair floated around him, distortion spreading where he passed. Natural laws changed because of him. Waves surged in the sea below, roaring and rumbling. The sea's waters were sunken, as if under shocking pressure. He's finally here, thought Meng Hao. His eyes glittered. He entered the ninth anima without hesitation. Boom! His body shook violently as more powerful energy unleashed. He had spirit-severing fleshly body and energy capable of shaking everything. Below, the nascent soul cultivator coughed blood and sank, quivering. To him, it was like the heavens crumbled. The approaching figure was the 10th Wang clan patriarch. He strode forward, expression cold, filled with infinite killing intent. He appeared capable of collapsing everything around him. Each step made everything rumble. You dared disseminate your aura to draw me here, he said coolly, voice crackling like thunder. Who are you relying on? Call them out immediately. His voice caused Saints Island to shake. Mountains crumbled, countless people crying out. In the Footloose sect, dozens of beams flew up and faces flickered. Up in midair, wind and clouds surged into an enormous vortex. It looked like doomsday had arrived. As the 10th Wang clan patriarch entered Saints Island airspace, waves raged, desolate howls echoing. If nobody helps you, you can't escape, the patriarch said calmly, voice emotionless. His cold gaze fell on Meng Hao. The gaze touched him, and rumbling surrounded Meng Hao. 7 cultivation base powers exploded out, fleshly body strength slamming into the gaze's pressure. Boom! Rumbling filled Meng Hao's body. Incredible pressure descended, more intense than before, his face paling. His cultivation base condensed from 7 to 6. The pressure was like a grindstone, Meng Hao the blade. His intense power exploded out and fought back. Rumble! Blood oozed from Meng Hao's mouth, spinning backward, but bright light shone in his eyes as he relied on his own power to resist. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's eyes flickered, gazing at Meng Hao. This wasn't the same clone from the southern domain. This was a true flesh and blood clone. Far more powerful than the divine clone, the will within its gaze could kill. Below, the nascent soul cultivator's astonishment peaked. He couldn't imagine what cultivation base could make a spirit-severing expert incapable of fighting back. A nightmare. He trembled, wishing he'd lapse into unconsciousness. Back in the palace, Patriarch Reliance's eyes glittered as he observed silently. Anxiety appeared in guiding Triran's eyes. Hovering seaside, Meng Hao wiped blood from his mouth and backed up. The 10th Wang clan patriarch grew more excited about Meng Hao's Dao Foundation. It's truly worthy of the perfect Dao Foundation. He stepped toward Meng Hao. Meng Hao suddenly shouted, "Patriarch, save me." As soon as the words left his mouth, Patriarch Reliance's face twitched. He pretended as if he hadn't heard, but guiding Triran, looking more anxious than ever, quickly turned to look at him. Boom! Even as he spoke the words, Meng Hao fled at top speed, his body flickering with a bloody glow. However, the 10th Wang clan patriarch instantly appeared in front of him. "Patriarch Reliance," said Meng Hao, using his cultivation base to cause his words to echo out through all of Saints Island. "I'm the only remaining disciple of the Reliance sect. Even in the Footloose sect, considering my level of seniority, I should be considered a respected elder. Can you really just watch on while I get killed?" Everyone in the Footloose sect could clearly hear the words he had spoken. Meng Hao instantly tried to retreat again, but the 10th Wang clan patriarch waved his hand out. His shocking killing intent, which contained the will of Tao seeking, transformed into a black beam that shot toward Meng Hao. It moved with incredible speed, but Meng Hao was on guard. The immortal's sword appeared, which instantly caused the 10th Wang clan patriarch's pupils to constrict. In that instant, back in the palace, guiding Trirane gritted her teeth and then suddenly vanished. She transformed into a drop of rainwater, which then shot out of the palace. At the same time, the boat's spirit also vanished. When the raindrop reappeared, it was in front of Meng Hao. It instantly transformed into a sheet of falling rain, which blocked the incoming black beam of light. Guiding Trirane's voice suddenly sounded out. "Your fleshly body is strong, but you can't use it now. Rain is water. Water can become a lake, and that lake wishes to transform into sea. The surface of the sea can ripple. Vibration can resist countless powers." As soon as Meng Hao heard her, his eyes went wide. Although he recognized the voice, there was no time to reminisce right now. The words seemed to bring him to his senses, and he began to vibrate his body. All of this takes some time to describe, but actually happened in the blink of an eye. The black beam neared, and as it passed through the rainwater, more than half of it dissipated. What remained slammed into Meng Hao, causing a boom to rattle out. The vibrations of Meng Hao's body, however, transformed into a strange power that caused all the defensive power within his fleshly body to be consolidated into one location. Within the blink of an eye, 100 vibrations occurred, fighting back against the black beam. Meng Hao's body shook, and blood sprayed out of his mouth. As he fell backward head over heels, the rainwater transformed into a young girl who caught him in her arms. The boat's spirit appeared as well. He waved his sleeve, causing the air to ripple and distort in protection of Meng Hao as they retreated. Although they had dispelled the black beam, the ripples that had been sent out as a result had completely destroyed the surrounding land. Everything had been crushed and destroyed, leaving behind a massive crater. As Meng Hao retreated, an angry look appeared in his eyes. "Old Turtle Reliance, you're my Tao protector. I can't believe that the restrictive spells placed on you would allow you to just sit by and watch while I perish." Even as he spoke, the 10th Wang clan patriarch neared. A look of derision appeared on his face, and he lifted his right hand up. The will of extermination appeared in his eyes as he struck out with his palm. As soon as the palm began to move, everything grew dark, as if the entire world now belonged to that palm. As it descended, Meng Hao, as well as everything in the entire area, began to topple and disintegrate. Seeing what was happening, Patriarch Reliance lifted his head up and roared. Meng Hao's words had stabbed him to the heart. He truly couldn't just sit by complacently and watch him die. "Fudge, fine, the Patriarch is coming." When you added in the flames of fury which still raged inside of him, and the fact that the 10th Wang clan patriarch was destroying the entire land with his palm, it all made Patriarch Reliance howl and finally leave the palace. This chapter was sponsored by Karen Nguyen, Dennis Liu, and Christian Seljaval. Chapter 645, Shameless Old Turtle. As Patriarch Reliance appeared, All Saints Island trembled. He wore a long azure robe, hair swaying. He looked ancient, but his eyes glowed brightly, veins bulging from his forehead. His anger absolutely had to be vented. In a single step, he crossed half Saints Island to stand between Meng Hao and the 10th Wang clan patriarch. He lifted his hand and steam rose instantly, emanating shocking demonic chi and prismatic light. The patriarch's palm slammed into it. "I'm the patriarch, screw off," he raged, roaring. His voice echoed like thunder. Mist and palm slammed together, enormous roaring filling the air. Patriarch Reliance was sent tumbling backward. He looked up, vicious expression in his eyes. The 10th Wang clan patriarch trembled, eyes gleaming brightly. He gave a cold laugh. "A trifling spirit-severing cultivator," he said coolly. "This is who you're relying on. Allow me to destroy him and your hope." From his tone, destroying Patriarch Reliance would be easy. Actually, destroying a spirit-severing cultivator truly was simple for him. Normally, Meng Hao couldn't stand against him at all, only because the Patriarch needed to avoid killing him. If he did, he couldn't steal his Tao foundation. The Wang patriarch had many Taoist magics that could destroy everything. I'm a Wang clan patriarch. An ancestor invented three-finger attacks, two lost arts, but the extermination finger remains. The patriarch waved his finger in the air. It possessed extermination power. All living things, life force withered under it. Meng Hao's eyes flickered, sensing his life force rapidly fade. Cold light appeared in his eyes as he fell back. Having gained enlightenment about vibration, 100 vibrations locked down his life force, slowing the withering. Not time to leave yet, thought Meng Hao. I need to wait until the fight between Old Turtle Reliance and the Patriarch peaks. When fury flares, I'll flee. He stayed to attack the 10th Wang Patriarch here, using Patriarch Reliance's power to destroy him, giving himself an escape. Guiding Trirane stood next to him, serious look on her face. The boat spirit's eyes shone brightly as he stood protectively off to the side. Because heaven and earth transformed and Saints Island quaked, Footloose sect experts sped over as fast as possible. They flew into danger, but Footloose sect rules were strict. Seniority mattered most. If the patriarch battled, they had to come unless ordered away. Most nervous was the nascent soul cultivator below who tried to rob Meng Hao. He shook violently, eyes wide. Everything caused him to breathe rapidly, his mind spinning. He'd lost the ability to think. None of them, Meng Hao, Patriarch Reliance, or the Patriarch, were people he could contact. Getting involved was the most unlucky thing in his life. Heaven and earth sank into extermination. The 10th Wang Patriarch's finger attack turned the entire world gray. Only the Patriarch had color. The finger descended, and the world shook. Patriarch Reliance's eyebrows shot up, incantation performed. Demonic chi swept out. What dog crap extermination finger, he said. I've never heard of it. Demonic art, heaven and earth cleaving. Patriarch Reliance waved a finger. His fingernail became heaven, finger flesh became earth. The fingertip transformed into a sharp blade cleaving both. Both finger attacks slammed together. Boom! The massive explosion made the nascent soul cultivator cough blood as he spun backward. Meng Hao fell back, eyes glittering, seeing plants rapidly wilting. Patriarch Reliance's extended finger began to shrivel, his entire body shriveling after. His hair fell off, his body emaciated. He looked like a desiccated corpse. Then he exploded, transforming into countless light dots floating away. The 10th Wang clan patriarch's expression never changed. He seemed confident in his finger attack. That's who you relied on, he asked coolly, looking at Meng Hao with ridicule. Meng Hao's expression was calm. Guiding Trirane was similar. This caused the patriarch to gape in shock. Something was clearly wrong. As he stepped forward, a shocking roar filled the air. Damn it, this bastard extinguished my clone. A pulsing steam cloud appeared and reformed into Patriarch Reliance. This Reliance's cultivation base was weaker. As he appeared, rage boiled skyward, demented gleam in his eyes. He shot forward. With me here, he roared, nobody can kill that little boss. Nobody can kill Meng Hao. If he hadn't spoken, Meng Hao wouldn't have suspected anything. But his heart pounded with fear and his face flickered. He didn't believe Patriarch Reliance truly meant those words. Damn it, what technique has the old turtle come up with to escape the demon seal? It must relate to his words. Can he actually escape fighting? Meng Hao wasn't the unseasoned cultivator he'd been. He'd honed his reasoning over time. Based on Reliance's words, he could pick up clues. As Meng Hao's mind raced, Patriarch Reliance stood between him and the Patriarch, flicking his sleeve. Meng Hao, get out of here, he said, then charged toward the 10th Wang clan Patriarch. Meng Hao shivered and panted slightly. The Patriarch gave a cold snort and stepped forward, attacking with his extermination finger. As before, everything turned gray and all life was destroyed. Patriarch Reliance let out an indignant howl. Life is treasured, promises are eternal. I'm Patriarch Reliance and promise to be Meng Hao's Tao protector. Even torn into pieces, I'll abide by my promise. Seemingly unafraid, Patriarch Reliance charged forward, preferring to die blocking the Patriarch's momentum. He unleashed a demonic art as he fearlessly attacked. Anyone watching felt complete and utter valiance, giving one's life for a promise, actions of a true man. But Meng Hao knew the old turtle well. He'd never act like this. Sweat poured down Meng Hao's forehead as a bad feeling filled him. Without hesitation, he cast aside his plan and fled. Guiding Trirane looked at fleeing Meng Hao, then back at Patriarch Reliance facing death. She sighed. Bang! Under the power of the extermination finger, Patriarch Reliance's body withered rapidly, and then collapsed into pieces. However, at the same time, a roar suddenly could be heard. The mist formed together again, once more turning into Patriarch Reliance. Yet again, he risked death to block the way of the 10th Wang clan patriarch. "I can die with no regrets, but Meng Hao must not die," cried Patriarch Reliance. "That is my promise from years ago." A strange glow appeared in the eyes of the 10th Wang clan patriarch as he looked at Patriarch Reliance. So, a promise truly can give rise to someone so brave as to use their own essence to come back to life in this way. From the perspective of the Wang clan patriarch, Patriarch Reliance must be drawing on the essence of his true self to return to life. To cultivators of his realm, one's essence was the most prized of all possessions. Wasting it could lead to severe injury that would be difficult to recover from. It truly was extremely precious. A look of respect appeared in the eyes of the 10th Wang clan patriarch. He suddenly realized that if this Patriarch Reliance were a member of his own clan, then he would definitely make an excellent guard. Meng Hao was cursing inwardly. By now, he had realized exactly what Patriarch Reliance was doing. Currently, Meng Hao employed all the speed he could muster to flee, although he wished he could move thousands of times faster. "Ha ha ha," thought Patriarch Reliance. "It turns out this method is working after all. The Patriarch is the most intelligent yet again. The demon seal only requires that I become a Tao protector. Tao protector, huh? That just means protecting. And the true meaning of Tao is to temper oneself. Therefore, the identity of a Tao protector doesn't mean I have to prevent the little bastard from dying. All I have to do is protect him a bit. If any accidents happen, as long as I'm trying hard, then it won't matter. And I'm already trying hard. This might just be a clone, but I did have to expend some essence, right? As for the demon seal, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Ha ha ha. The Patriarch is far too intelligent. This time, it won't count as defying the demon seal." Patriarch Reliance felt quite proud of himself. On the outside, though, he looked furious. He seemed to be going all out to block the way of the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Once again, his body withered and then collapsed. The next time he appeared, he was even weaker than before. By now, the 10th Wang clan patriarch was truly in admiration of Patriarch Reliance's loyalty. This time, when Patriarch Reliance's body withered away, the Wang clan patriarch didn't wait for it to reform before shooting off to pursue Meng Hao. When Patriarch Reliance reappeared, he was extremely weak. In fact, his body was so shapeless that the illusory image of his true self could actually be seen. He now looked like a fearsome turtle, who stood there watching as the 10th Wang clan patriarch chased after Meng Hao. His expression one of incredible grief and indignation. Patriarch Reliance shouted, "Don't kill him, kill me instead." Inside, Patriarch was laughing up a storm, but on the outside his eyes were bloodshot. He lifted his head up to roar and then offered pursuit. "Kill me, okay? I have to keep my promise even if I die. Don't kill him. I'm not just his Tao protector, I'm his Patriarch. He is the highest-ranking disciple in the Footloose sect next to me. He is my equal, the future and hope of the Footloose sect. You are not permitted to kill him." "Shameless," growled Meng Hao through clenched teeth. Without hesitation, he pulled out the good luck charm and was about to press down on it hard when suddenly the 10th Wang clan patriarch turned his head. There he saw Patriarch Reliance, looking both complacent and indignant. He was in turtle form now, and his eyes glowed with a strange light. The 10th Wang clan patriarch was moved. "I've seen many demon beasts in my life, but this is definitely the most loyal one I've ever encountered." Chapter 646, I'll give you some good fortune. To create a realistic act, Patriarch Reliance filled his roars with incredible power. Everyone on the island, including Footloose sect cultivators, could hear him clearly. Faces flickered with various emotions. People near the battlefield didn't dare approach, expressions of shock and panting. "Meng Hao, who's that? He sounds important in the Footloose sect. What person would the Patriarch risk his life for? He must be the sect's hope. He can't die." "Meng Hao, I remember. He was a Reliance sect inner sect disciple. The Patriarch's right. He's the highest-ranking member next to the Patriarch." Astonished cultivators committed Reliance's words to heart. Patriarch Reliance's words were filled with such realistic emotion he was starting to believe them. Tears appeared as he roared. The 10th Wang clan patriarch stopped midair, eyes wide with shock. "Why aren't you chasing him?" said Patriarch Reliance, blinking. He was far larger than the Patriarch now, inserted between him and Meng Hao. He glared. "Kill me and then pass." Patriarch Reliance was fully immersed in the game. To him, it was fun, and his voice burst with incredible power. With me here, nobody can hurt Meng Hao, he roared. Inwardly, he laughed. He wanted the patriarch to strike him down quickly and finish with the little bastard. Then he'd finally be freed. However, the patriarch didn't chase Meng Hao. From his perspective, Meng Hao couldn't truly escape. He'd catch him sooner or later. But the demon beast in front was rare. Rare enough the patriarch couldn't let it go. What an incredible, loyal demon beast, he said slowly. I've never seen anything like it. Admiration grew in his eyes as he looked at Reliance, nodding. For such a beast to follow this child is a pity. Demon Turtle, I am the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Will you be my follower? Then you'll be the divine beast Tao protector of the Wang clan. When I achieve immortal ascension, I'll bring you into the heavens. Meng Hao was about to press the good luck charm when he heard the patriarch. He stopped and looked back. Seeing the scene and patriarch Reliance trembling, he wanted to laugh. He knew Reliance most valued his freedom. To get rid of Meng Hao, he might forget other matters, but his freedom, talking about that would piss him off. I never imagined this, thought Meng Hao. But I like it. Come on, be realistic, old turtle. Keep the act up, I want more. Patriarch Reliance stared wide-eyed for a moment, then his heart began pounding. He felt about to explode. Madness surged through his mind. What did you say? What did you call me? He almost couldn't believe someone would try to turn him into a guard. This was the second time such humiliation occurred since he grew up. The first was the League of Demon Sealers. To Reliance, the irritation exceeded anything else. His body trembled and distorted, only his last rationality suppressing his rage. You're not pleased, little demon turtle, said the patriarch, face sinking. He de-offered this rare opportunity. Normally, he'd kill it instantly. Fudge, you're the demon turtle, roared Reliance. Your whole Wang clan are demon turtles and you're a bastard son. Do you dare try to make me your guard? Moments later, he urged himself to hold on. Just hold on and good fortune would come. His body had grown incredibly blurry, but his real body trembled, causing huge waves to surge on the sea with echoing rumbling. It's beyond your control, said the patriarch, voice cool. Willing or not, it doesn't matter. When I decide, nobody changes it. I'll put restrictive spells on you and you'll be the demon turtle of my Wang clan. He felt his words to be heaven's will, laws and statutes. Meng Hao was wild with joy, almost laughing. He knew he could leave any time. Besides, if Reliance couldn't endure, Meng Hao didn't mind facing danger to see it. The patriarch raised his hand and performed incantation. Thousands of restrictive spell symbols appeared midair, circulating to form a huge net shot toward turtle-form Reliance. Reliance's body was blurry but furious. His panting sounded like explosions, his fury reaching detonation. His eyes went wide. Earlier he'd done everything to hold back, but now he couldn't suppress anything. In a blink his fury exploded. Thunderous booming echoed in all directions as Patriarch Reliance lifted his head in unprecedented howl. He didn't care about Meng Hao or the demon sealing sect. Only towering rage mattered from this humiliation. The humiliation ripped open old wounds from the League of Demon Sealers. Rage filled his mind and he roared. Damn it, damn it. The League of Demon Sealers is one thing, but you, tiny child, you dare humiliate the patriarch. Reliance forgot about his act completely. His eyes burned bright red, Saints Island shaking violently. The land quaked as if an enormous creature woke beneath. Massive waves roared across the sea as if about to explode. Far beneath Saints Island in the deep sea's blackness, 2 oil lamps appeared. They were bloodshot, filled with madness from old wounds ripped open, madness stemming from humiliation. Boom! Huge fissures ripped open. The sky darkened, wild colors flashed, the sea raged. The patriarch's face fell. Before he could move, an aura exploded from deep within the sea, filled with intense rage. As it appeared, it shredded the air. Saints Island seemed ripped from the world. The patriarch immediately sensed the aura, and his face filled with shock. He took a deep breath and flew up, face pale. Immortal, he said, voice faint. This is an immortal's aura. Demonic chi like an immortal. This is demon immortal will. A deep, growling voice came from within the ground, shaking earth and mountains. You dare call the patriarch a demon turtle. You dare try to make me your guard. The voice came from ground and sea. Seawater churned and spun around Saints Island, transforming into a huge vortex. You dare put restrictive spells on me. Are you worthy? Boom! The sea exploded, water showering in all directions. Huge force shot into the sky as a gargantuan head became visible in the water sheets. It stretched to blot out the entire sky, its shadow obstructing sun and moon, covering everything. It was a vicious turtle's colossal head, skin covered with wrinkles. Pitch black and terrifying, its mouth open showing sharp, yellow teeth. Its eyes seemed blurry at first, then clearly radiated intense fury and rage. This was Patriarch Reliance's real body's head. Indescribable energy pulsed from Patriarch Reliance, his aura emanating, causing all living things to tremble. The Patriarch slowly forced himself to turn around. He saw the gigantic head filling the entire sky. He gaped, his mind roaring. His eyes widened in astonished disbelief. He suddenly understood why his opponent wasted essence so frivolously, because its essence was incredibly, astonishingly vast. "You," stammered the Patriarch, his scalp going numb. For years sweeping planet South Heaven, he'd never seen such a shocking, terrifying demon beast. "You want the Patriarch to be your guard," raged Patriarch Reliance. His voice was like thunder, filled with madness. Countless mountains collapsed, huge waves rolled across the sea. The Patriarch staggered backward, Reliance's roar causing him to cough blood. His face was pale. Panting, he thought back to making his opponent a guard. Obviously, he had no qualifications to make a demon immortal act as a guard. "Senior, please calm your anger," he said quickly, backing up. "This is a big misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding my flipping ass," roared Patriarch Reliance. The echo sounded back and forth, the sea roaring as if countless Patriarch Reliances roared. But then he said, "Allow the Patriarch to bestow you with some good fortune." This was the second time Meng Hao had seen Patriarch Reliance's real body. It was as shocking now as before. He thought back to venting on Reliance in the demon immortal pagoda and felt scared. But then he remembered the demon sealing scripture could restrain him and felt calmer. Hearing good fortune, Meng Hao's eyes shined brightly. He quickly began backing up. Now was time to make his exit. This chapter was sponsored by Tommy T, Brett Flowers, Bo Green, Fabian Mueller, and Stefika Hoff. Chapter 647, Patriarch Meng Hao. The 10th Wang clan patriarch was stunned by the mention of good fortune. Patriarch Reliance's gargantuan head shot toward him at incredible speed. Ghost images sprang up around him as the air itself cracked. Bang! Rage flashed in the eyes of the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Blood sprayed from his mouth, and a glittering shield sprang up before cracking and shattering into small pieces. His face pale, he performed a double-handed incantation, calling the wind and summoning the rain. Magical power swirled around him as an incredible magical art shot toward Patriarch Reliance. The 10th Wang clan patriarch coughed up blood and sped backward, narrowly escaping. Terror gripped him. After reaching Spirit's Severing, he had never encountered anything he feared, and as a Tao-seeking cultivator in all of South Heaven, he was afraid of nothing, not even double-crossing the Jai clan. Now he was afraid. He fled without hesitation, producing several dozen magical items, treasures he had spent years collecting. The light of their unleashing swirled around his body as he fled. However, Patriarch Reliance's eyes flashed with killing intent. His head shrank back, but then shot out again as fast as lightning. A blood-curdling scream echoed from the 10th Wang clan patriarch. This time, he couldn't dodge. His treasures were destroyed with a crunching sound as half his body was crushed and ripped away by Patriarch Reliance. His scream was desolate as the Wang patriarch tried to escape with the remaining half. He was in a horrific situation. Blood sprayed about in all directions and Meng Hao's eyes glittered. Without stopping to even look back, he waved his arm, causing some of the blood to swirl over to him. Then he continued off into the distance. Behind him, Patriarch Reliance wasn't finished venting. Even as his head shot toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch, he sensed Meng Hao growing distant. His rage did not lessen. It boiled up from within. He instantly changed directions, moving like lightning to appear next to Meng Hao, his enormous mouth opening to consume him. In that instant, layers of restrictive spells flared up around him. Countless magical symbols, connected like glittering chains, covered Patriarch Reliance's body. Even his shell cracked as if he were about to be crushed alive. The pain caused Patriarch Reliance to let out a miserable cry. His head shot back and he glared hatefully at Meng Hao. "Nothing good ever happens when I run into you," roared Patriarch Reliance. "One of these days, Meng Hao's turtle is gonna beg for me to ride him." Meng Hao shot back, looking coldly at Patriarch Reliance as he shot off into the distance. Meng Hao's words moved Patriarch Reliance inwardly. His eyes turned bright red, and he slipped into madness. However, he didn't try to consume Meng Hao again. The glowing chains racked his entire body with pain. Unable to kill Meng Hao, he flashed back toward the Wang clan patriarch to vent his anger. The 10th Wang clan patriarch was terror-stricken. In his wildest dreams, he could never have imagined encountering a demon immortal in this place, let alone understanding how such a creature could hide in the Milky Way Sea. This is impossible. How could there be a demon immortal in the lands of South Heaven? The Jai clan is useless. How could they permit a demon immortal to hide in the Milky Way Sea? By this point, having lost half his body, the 10th Wang clan patriarch knew he was going to die. There was no way to flee a demon immortal. Damnable Meng Hao. First the kid pulls out an immortal sword to kill my clone, and now he has a Tao protector like this. Just how lucky can one person be? The 10th Wang clan patriarch could barely accept it, yet he realized that Meng Hao's luck had allowed him to form the perfect Tao foundation. Thankfully, this is only a clone. I'll sustain damage when it dies, but I have no other options. Well then, if I'm going to die, I'll go out fighting this demon immortal. A bright light appeared in his eyes as Patriarch Reliance's head closed in. With a roar, the Wang clan patriarch spun around and performed an incantation. Meng Hao fled at high speed, barely taking time to clasp hands and bow to guiding Tririn in the distance. His plan had succeeded. All that remained was escape. Patriarch Reliance's head was far from Meng Hao now. He was enraged and frustrated. Whenever he encountered Meng Hao, nothing good happened. The first time, he had been forced to leave with the state of Zhao. Now, he had been humiliated into action. Vexation kindled his fury. Patriarch Reliance shot toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch with intense killing intent. Booming sounds echoed along with miserable shrieks. Meng Hao didn't stop. He shot forward at the highest speed, transforming into a beam of colorful light, and reached the sea's border in a few dozen breaths. Up ahead were disciples of the Footloose sect. When they saw Meng Hao, they were shaken. Some recognized him from his time in the state of Zhao. "Greetings, Patriarch Meng Hao," they said, clasping hands and bowing deeply. Seeing their actions, the others realized the person before them was Meng Hao, the one their patriarch risked his life to protect, and whose seniority in the sect was second only to the patriarch himself. Because their cultivation bases were not high enough, they had no idea about Patriarch Reliance trying to consume Meng Hao. In the Footloose sect, nothing was more important than seniority, a principle built into the sect rules and imprinted in their hearts. To see Meng Hao and not immediately bow would be unthinkable. "Greetings, Patriarch Meng Hao," said the group, clasping hands and bowing. Meng Hao's eyes glittered with a smile as he nodded and shot past them. When Patriarch Reliance saw this, he nearly coughed up blood, his rage burning even hotter. He felt as if he had hoisted a rock to crush Meng Hao, only to drop it on his own foot. His act had been completely convincing to all the disciples, leaving them shocked and amazed. Meng Hao's name spread around the entire area. "Nothing good ever happens to me around Meng Hao. Damn it!" Patriarch Reliance, his rage at unprecedented heights, bit toward the 10th Wang clan patriarch. Meng Hao had planned to leave but stopped. Considering Patriarch Reliance's act, their relationship, and the two displays of killing intent, he decided to pull a quick con. He turned back to the Footloose sect disciples. "Take out all your spirit stones and give them to me," he said. "Later, Patriarch Footloose will repay you 100-fold. Don't worry, Patriarch Footloose is willing to give up his life for me. Do you really think he cares about some trifling spirit stones?" As he spoke, he imbued his voice with his cultivation base, causing his words to echo about throughout the entirety of Saints Island. When Patriarch Reliance heard the words, his anger burned hotter. He looked at the 10th Wang clan patriarch gasping on the verge of death, half-minded to go after Meng Hao and kill him. But if he did, the restrictive spells would restrain him. If he contradicted Meng Hao, he would lose face and people would suspect his previous actions. Meng Hao's words echoed in the ears of all the Footloose sect members throughout Saints Island. Patriarch Reliance would have no choice but to pay back the spirit stones. "HMPH," he said, comforting himself. "How many spirit stones could a few disciples have? Who cares if I have to pay them back 100-fold? My spit is worth more than that." With that, he jerked his head to the side. The 10th Wang clan patriarch, clasped in his jaw, let out a miserable shriek. The cultivators stared in shock at Meng Hao, then produced their bags of holding and gave him all the spirit stones. These Footloose sect disciples had significant cultivation bases and quite a collection, tens of thousands of spirit stones. Meng Hao nodded happily as he collected them. "I accept your 100,000 spirit stones," said Meng Hao loudly, his voice echoing throughout Saints Island. "Make sure to keep a hold of this receipt." He tossed out a jade slip and shot off into the distance. The group gaped in astonishment. They had clearly handed over less than 50,000 spirit stones, yet somehow it had become 100,000. Their eyes glittered as they realized Meng Hao had blessed them with good fortune. Their hearts filled with joy, and they all bowed deeply to Meng Hao's retreating figure. "We bid you respectful adieu, Patriarch Meng Hao." Patriarch Reliance heard their words and trembled. Then he let out an indignant bellow. "Meng-Hao." "Patriarch, there's no need to escort me away," cried back Meng Hao. "Disciple will take his leave now. Patriarch, you risked your life for me, leaving Disciple very moved. I won't put you to any more inconvenience." By this point, he had flown off Saint's Island and was over the sea. Behind him, the 10th Wang clan Patriarch's clone was a mass of blood and gore. He let out a final blood-curdling screech, shredded into pieces and swallowed by Patriarch Reliance. Patriarch Reliance's head swiveled to glare hatefully at Meng Hao's retreating figure. After a long moment, he lifted his head and roared. Massive waves seethed on the sea, forming a huge vortex that swept around Saint's Island, and to the shock of everyone, caused the entire island to speed away with incredible velocity. Wind swept about and waves crashed. In a blink, not a shadow of the island remained. Only Meng Hao floated in midair. Meanwhile, back in the Wang clan in the southern domain, the 10th Wang clan Patriarch's true self lay in the coffin in his tomb beneath the mountains. He suddenly opened his eyes and coughed up blood. He sat up, and his aged figure grew older, more withered, his aura thrown into chaos. His archaic, wrinkled face was pale as he grasped the side of the coffin. He looked up, and within his pupils appeared intense, venomous hatred. After a long moment, his eyes glittered. So there is enmity between that Patriarch Reliance and Meng Hao. He attacked him twice, but was unable to destroy him because of the restrictive spells. The only reason he attacked me was because I accidentally offended him. In turn, that means that he won't be helping Meng Hao a second time. Next time I catch up with him, will be the day Meng Hao loses his Dao foundation. The 10th Wang clan Patriarch breathed heavily as a cold glow appeared in his eyes. Chapter 648, Third Ring Stormwind Divide. The Milky Way Sea was split into 4 rings, outside of which was the Outer Sea, an area mostly of small islands occupied by various cultivator clans. Among them, the strongest were of core formation. To them, the 4th ring was incredibly dangerous, populated by thieves, murderers, and ferocious sea beasts. There were also powerful sects and clans. Some were led by nascent soul cultivators, making the place dangerous. However, everyone knew good fortune could be scraped out there, as the Zhang clan had done. To the cultivators in the 4th ring, the 3rd ring was a forbidden zone of both danger and opportunity. Any who entered the 3rd ring without being nascent soul did so at great risk. Even nascent soul cultivators could die easily if luck wasn't with them, for the 3rd ring was filled with sea beasts. Despite that, many cultivators attempted to enter. Some experts even made their home there. What attracted them was the potential profits. The sea beasts were known as sea demons, their hearts precious treasures similar to spirit stones. A single demon heart was superior to a low-grade spirit stone, more like a mid-grade one. Some hearts from especially powerful sea demons could compare to high-grade spirit stones, valuable treasures no cultivator could ignore. The Milky Way Sea had no spirit stone quarries, no way to produce spirit stones. Naturally, demon hearts became the trade item of the sea. Some precious items could only be acquired with demon hearts. To acquire them, one had to enter the 3rd ring and take risks. The powerful sea demons there were fierce and savage, regarding all cultivators with extreme hostility, as incompatible as fire and water. There was no way to prevent the Milky Way Sea cultivators' thirst for demon hearts. Many tales were told of people striking it rich overnight in the 3rd ring. Therefore, countless cultivators had come to brave the almost certain death. Meng Hao was well aware of this from the jade slip provided by the Zhang clan. Though it lacked detailed information, it gave him a basic understanding. In the 4th ring of the Milky Way Sea, a beam of light screamed through the air, causing seawater to seethe below. A man in a green robe flew past, his long gray hair whipping in the wind. He looked young yet emanated a faint, archaic air. His eyes were like stars, his features handsome, somewhat like a scholar. This was Meng Hao. A month had passed since leaving Saint's Island. The entire time, he had sped across the Milky Way Sea's surface, gaining greater understanding of the area. His eyes glittered as he proceeded forward, thinking. It might not have been the 10th Wang clan patriarch's true self that died. It would be great if it was, but if not, I only have a temporary respite from danger. Another deadly crisis won't be far away. Meng Hao continued thinking as he proceeded. The parrot flew nearby, occasionally diving into the water and shooting up again. It was clearly having fun. Meng Hao pulled out the jade slip from Zhang Wenfeng and examined it again. A never-ending tempest exists between the 4th and 3rd rings, he thought. A windstorm that can shred anything alive, a huge divide preventing anyone from entering the 3rd ring. The map portrayed the sea and nothing else from the 4th ring. It was useless. His body flashed as he continued into the deeper regions. Without a map, the Milky Way Sea is arranged in rings. All I need to do is keep going deeper. He increased his speed and the parrot kept up. Time passed. Soon 2 months had gone by. Meng Hao was shocked by the 4th ring size. He had been flying for 3 months, though not non-stop. Occasionally, he caught sight of islands populated by various sects and clans. These groups had inhabited the Milky Way Sea for generations and were knowledgeable about the area. With his cultivation base, it was simple for him to acquire maps from them. Soon, he had a thorough outline of the entire 4th ring. He also learned about the 3rd ring. There are 3 saints in the 3rd ring. The 3 saints are spirit-severing cultivators leading 3 sects: the Sea Divinity sect, the Flying Immortal sect, and the Sun Soul Society. Those 3 sects determine who enters the 3rd ring. They built 3 sea cities surrounding it where travelers must pass. Entry costs spirit stones, exit costs more, based on time inside. Meng Hao floated there considering the information from the jade slip in his hand. The 3 sea cities have a special method for bringing people through the tempest safely. According to rumors, there wasn't always a tempest surrounding the 3rd ring. Supposedly, the ancestors of the 3 saints summoned it. Successive generations of descendants learned to pass through it. The 3 sects have vast resources and tens of thousands of members. For unknown reasons, each produces only a single spirit-severing expert. However, their deep resources mean even Tao-seeking cultivators would think twice before tangling with them. Meng Hao's eyes glittered as he put the jade slip away. He decided not to head toward the sea cities. Instead, he would use the maps to force his way directly through the hurricane. If the Wang Patriarch is truly not dead, using the sea cities would leave a trail. The best method is to force my way through. The 3 sects won't have any record of me. Even if the 10th Wang clan patriarch comes looking, my altered aura will make it difficult for him, at least temporarily. Having decided, Meng Hao flared his aura and shot forward at top speed. A few days later, a gray mass of storm winds appeared ahead. Rumbling sounds emanated, and the closer he got, the more the winds resembled a huge wall stretching into the heavens. It was ring-shaped and seemed endless. Fog pulsed in and out with howling, screaming sounds. It seemed devils and fiends lurked inside, waiting to stop cultivators and prevent sea demons from charging out. The 4th ring has sea demons, which means the storm winds are powerful but contain weak spots. He hovered outside, his hair flying, his clothes whipping violently. Inside, lightning crackled. The seawater seemed divided. Waves surged outside the tempest but couldn't enter. They crashed on the outside, creating an almost permanent blanket of rain. Meng Hao examined it, then looked down at the sea's surface. His eyes glittered, and he rotated his cultivation base. The surface grew transparent to his eyes, allowing him to see what lay beneath. The storm winds extended down into the sea. They didn't interfere with water flow, but when Meng Hao extended his divine sense deep, he sensed shocking things he didn't dare touch. He pulled back his divine sense, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes. Currently, he possessed 5 portions of cultivation base power. As time passed, he would slowly fuse them into one. After adjusting his aura, Meng Hao's eyes opened, glowing with light as if he were prepared to take heaven and earth by force. His aura exploded, and he entered the 9th anima. His fleshly body hummed and reached the pinnacle of his power in a blink. A dreary expression of death covered his face, and his cultivation base's energy surged with monstrous power. The air shattered and cracked, and any rain near him was instantly pushed 300 meters away. Meng Hao took a deep breath. His body was like an arrow drawn tight. He shot forward and made contact with the storm winds in a blink. Without hesitation, he entered. From a distance, the tempest looked like a vicious, primordial beast that opened its mouth and swallowed Meng Hao. As soon as he entered, he was battered by intense force. Meng Hao's expression remained the same as he surged forward. The fog ahead was ripped apart. the sweeping wind collapsed. He was incapable of being stopped. His hair whipped around, but he sustained no injuries. Compared to the underworld wind he had experienced in the demon immortal sect, this was nothing. As he charged amidst booming roars, the fog scattered and seethed. In a short moment, Meng Hao had traveled 3,000 meters in. He was surrounded by screaming winds and pitch blackness, interspersed with lightning flashes. His face expressionless, he proceeded relentlessly. His spirit-severing fleshly body and terrifying cultivation base let him move deeper. Every time he breathed, countless lightning bolts shot toward him. He simply absorbed them. If any outsider saw this, they would be shocked. From ancient times to modern, few people had qualified to charge alone through these storm winds. This chapter was sponsored by Alex Tzu. Chapter 649, Spirits Hide in the Divide. There's a trick to this Milky Way sea stormwind divide, Meng Hao murmured. The wind screamed around him and lightning crackled. They could flay any nascent soul cultivator alive or reduce them to powder. However, the wind merely blew against his face without shaking him. The lightning was like a tonic that helped his cultivation base rotate faster. The parrot gripped his shoulder, also disdainful of the storm winds. Occasionally it would squawk and fly out with the meat jelly bell. Anyone who saw this scene would be astonished. In the entire Milky Way Sea, only spirit-severing cultivators would dare traverse the stormwind divide alone. There were only 3 spirit-severing cultivators in the Milky Way Sea, the 3 saints of the 3 sects. No one else would dare to cross. The divide was huge. Meng Hao had traveled with arms clasped behind his back for more than 30,000 kilometers and still had not emerged. As he continued, the winds raged with whimpering sounds through the pitch-black darkness, countless demons and fiends howling at him. Lightning danced in sheets, sending rumbling booms in all directions. This was a place where nascent soul cultivators couldn't exist. Their fleshly bodies would be destroyed, their nascent souls shattered. To Meng Hao, none of it mattered. 2 hours later, Meng Hao had proceeded further. Within the darkness, the wind was like a sharp blade that forced him to slow down, but his fleshly body's strength let him proceed. He pushed through for another day. The winds grew more astonishing and lightning struck everywhere. Flickering magical symbols appeared in the area. Meng Hao's eyes flickered when he felt the pressure from them. At first they were scarce, but the following day Meng Hao couldn't help but frown and slow down. The magical symbols were no longer flickering, but glowing brightly. Often he saw 10 or more fuse together to create spell formations. At one point, he eyed a spell formation. This could cause spirit-severing cultivators to tremble. He allowed it to touch him without avoiding it. A boom rattled out, his body trembled, but he didn't retreat. A smile of confidence appeared on his face as the formation collapsed into pieces before him. He brushed off his clothes and continued. A few days later, Meng Hao's expression flickered. He transformed into green smoke and shot past a collection of magical symbols shooting toward him. Rumbling echoed out. The magical symbols were imbued with a will that could exterminate anything in heaven and earth. As they passed, Meng Hao noticed the fog dissipated slightly because of the domineering air from the ball. As it made its way off into the distance, it encountered scattered magical symbols and consumed them, absorbing them into itself. That thing was made up of hundreds of magical symbols. A serious look appeared in his eyes. Such a formation caused him to feel a clear sense of menace. He wasn't sure if he could stand up to it if hit. "I can't afford to underestimate this stormwind divide," he murmured. He sent his divine sense out as he proceeded. Gradually, he saw more spell formations from hundreds of magical symbols. Eventually, they became commonplace, and he caught sight of even bigger ones. Those formations were made from thousands of magical symbols, shaped like magical items rather than simple spheres. He saw one that looked like a battle axe sweeping through the wind. Other formations made from hundreds of symbols avoided it and dared not get near it. The battle axe was dozens of meters tall and glittered brightly. A bleak killing will spread from it, as if it constantly desired slaughter. Looking at it, it appeared beyond ordinary. Meng Hao sensed a spirit-severing aura on it which surprised him. Interest glowed in his eyes. The magical symbols here are intriguing. Individually, they aren't very powerful, but in groups of 10 they emit strong pressure. Hundreds together are something spirit-severing cultivators won't touch, and when thousands coalesce, it emanates spirit-severing aura, clearly like a spirit-severing treasure. Meng Hao was moved. Based on his knowledge, after reaching spirit-severing, one could create a spirit-severing treasure in addition to acquiring domain enlightenment. It was done by fusing the will of the first severing blade into a magical item, using nascent divinity to nourish it, then transforming it into a spirit-severing treasure. Created with life force, such items were incredibly powerful. The item's weakness or strength upon creation would determine its later form. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. He did nothing to evade. After measuring it, he lifted his right hand to perform an incantation. A mountain appeared above his hand, then he pointed forward. The mountain rumbled, heading directly toward the battle axe formed from magical symbols. As the mountain neared, the battle axe did nothing to avoid it. When the mountain slammed into it, a huge boom sounded and the mountain collapsed. The battle axe was unchanged. However, it suddenly stopped as if it had a spirit staring in shock. It possessed its own will, thinking about how nothing in its memory had dared attack it. Meng Hao frowned. The battle axe was far more powerful than he imagined. It instantly reacted, shooting toward him, blade first. A black mist rose around it, with two eyes visible within, staring at Meng Hao. A furious rumbling emanated from within as it sped toward him. "Interesting," he said, smiling. His days traveling through the Stormwind Divide had been somewhat monotonous, and how could he shrink back from something intriguing? Moments ago, he had been testing it. Now that the battle axe was charging, he lifted his right hand, causing the image of a mountain thousands of meters tall to appear around him. He waved both hands outward, causing it to grow to 15,000 meters tall. The battle axe slammed into it. A boom resonated into the sky. The fog in the area churned, and the sound echoed into the far regions of the storm winds. Quite some distance away within the Stormwind Divide was a pitch-black ship that flew a pitch-black flag. As it proceeded through the winds, it emanated a bloody aura, as if filled with fresh blood. Blood-colored magical symbols rose from the blood, and in combination with the sails, allowed it to proceed safely through winds that would cause even spirit-severing cultivators to wince. The wind did nothing to the boat, and when lightning neared it, it avoided the ship rather than hitting it. Even the balls of magical symbols seemed shaken when they saw it and would sink into dormancy. A dozen or so cultivators were on the ship, pale-faced and panting as they looked out at the terrifying scene outside. Most were nascent soul cultivators, with only a couple of core formation stage. 3 old men were in charge of the ship. They wore haughty expressions and occasionally glanced at the other passengers with scorn. "What's all the fuss about?" said one. "We still have a long way to go. There's at least 6 months of travel before we reach our destination. The Sun Soul Society ferry isn't the fastest in the 3 sects, but it's the safest. Your spirit stones will not be spent in vain." In response, the passengers on the ship forced smiles onto their faces. They were already scared witless by everything they had seen. Only 2 of their number had calm expressions. They were familiar with the Stormwind Divide. All of these were cultivators on their way to search for good fortune in the third ring. This ship was a special vessel to transport them, for a price in spirit stones. In the Milky Way Sea, there was only one way to enter the third ring. Go to one of the 3 sects, see cities, pay, and board one of these ships. Of course, Meng Hao's illegal method did not count. The people on the ship had just squeezed out smiles when, suddenly, muffled booms sounded from the distance. Immediately, the storm winds rippled, and the lightning twisted. Many of the magical symbols twitched and seemed to awaken from slumber. Everyone on the ship's faces flickered, as they wondered what was happening. The 2 people with calm faces opened their eyes, strange light visible within them. They exchanged a glance and looked off into the distance. The 3 old men from the Sun Soul Society also looked up. Strange looks flashed in their eyes for a moment. Then they began to laugh coldly, derision clear on their faces. Someone is trying to rely on their own power to illegally pass through. Whoever it is, they're paying for their unlawful travel with their life. Serves them right. How could anybody possibly pass through the spell formation set up by the ancestors of the 3 sects? That person is simply looking to die. Although, to cause such a reaction shows his cultivation base is not weak. Who cares? He most likely ran into a 10-symbol formation. If it was a 100-symbol formation, he's dead. When the other cultivators heard the words of the 3 old men, they began to chuckle. Every year cultivators tried to get through on their own power to avoid paying the ship's fee. However, nobody succeeded. They always died inside. The cultivators on the ship had never imagined encountering such a person on their own journey. "It's too bad we're so far away," said one. "Otherwise we could witness him dying. It must be spectacular. It's already perilous enough trying to get into the third ring. To go out in the Stormwind Divide is stupid. Now that I think about it, All those spirit stones were worth it. Everyone on board seemed more relaxed now. Chapter 650, How Happy You Are. Cultivators were people, and they possessed the 7 emotions and 6 pleasures, thinking themselves superior to others. Such superiority would often become a type of happiness. That feeling of superiority is the source of happiness. For example, feeling safe while someone else is not, that is happiness, or drinking water when thirsty while someone else has nothing, that too is happiness. The people in the boat were experiencing exactly that type of happiness. Because of such happiness, they were not nervous about the danger around them. Instead, they laughed and chatted about the unlucky fool outside who had overestimated himself. Of course, Meng Hao was the unlucky fool. Booming surrounded him as the mountain collapsed. At the same time, the gigantic battle axe collapsed. The backlash tore it to pieces before him. However, the magical symbols that formed it did not disperse. Instead, they reformed into a huge hand. Instantly, it grabbed toward Meng Hao, radiating intense ferocity and hatred. Meng Hao's expression was calm as he lifted his hand and pointed forward. Instantly, his finger turned the color of blood. This was the blood finger. A second finger appeared, then a third, and finally 5 fingers stretched out, becoming the blood palm. 30 meters wide, seemingly illusory yet incredibly realistic, it shot toward the Axcom hand, backed by the power of the 9th anima. A huge boom sounded as both exploded into little pieces. Meng Hao didn't hesitate. He instantly moved forward, performing an incantation gesture and waving his sleeve. A killing air spread out. The glow of the greenwood tree appeared, along with the extinction of the violet sea, raging flames, and the frost soil. This 5 elements magical technique caused 5 characters to appear, exuding vicious pressure onto the dissipating magical symbols. A rumbling sounded as the hundreds of magical symbols began to tremble. They struggled to escape, but before they could, Meng Hao neared. His hand clenched into a fist and punched out, backed by the intense power of his fleshly body. The air vibrated as a gust of storm winds bore down on him, slashing the symbols and scattering them. This time the symbols flashed but did not reform. Meng Hao gave a cold snort, performed another incantation, and rotated his cultivation base. Instantly, 1,000 tiny mountains appeared and shot out. This 1,000 mountains technique was formed by the mountain-consuming incantation. As it descended, each mountain exerted pressure onto a symbol. Instantly, all were suppressed. Meng Hao waved his hand and the mountains crushed them. In a blink, the mountains consolidated together. Rumbling sounded as a 1,000-meter mountain appeared with a battle axe sealed inside. It struggled to free itself, but Meng Hao waved his hand and the mountain shot toward him, growing smaller until it fit in his palm. The battle axe was suppressed and shrunken. It struggled fiercely until cracking and popping sounded. After a few breaths, the battle axe destroyed the mountain and began to charge out. Meng Hao's face was calm as the index finger of his left hand pushed onto the mountain. Demon Sealing 8th Hex. His words caused a hex character to appear and cover the mountain peak, sealing it. The battle axe let out a mournful wail. It was incapable of escape now. Meng Hao felt relieved. He left behind a strand of divine sense, added restrictive spells, then smiled and put the mountain into his bag of holding. This will count as a treasure, he thought, his eyes glittering. Though it seemed simple, it took all the power of his cultivation base and his incredibly powerful fleshly body. Were it some other spirit-severing cultivator like Patriarch Huyan, they could not collect it so easily. The more spirit treasures I have like this, the better, he thought. Who knows what price they'll fetch in the future? Eyes shining, he looked around until his gaze fell on a group of 100 magical symbols floating in the distance. The symbols seemed to possess sentience. Perhaps because the aura of the battle axe had touched them, as soon as he looked at the formation, it appeared shocked and attempted to flee. Since this area was structured to block sea demons, it wouldn't be reasonable to take away all the formations. Besides, 100-symbol formations can't form into anything specific, so it would be useless. Muttering, Meng Hao turned and flew off into the distance, ignoring them. Quite some distance away, the passengers on the pitch-black ship heard the muffled booms, and their smiles grew even happier. That guy must be dead already. He overestimated himself and didn't have enough spirit stones to pay for the ship. No wonder he risked the 3rd ring. What a pity he's not intelligent. Who does he think he is to charge through the Stormwind Divide? One of the 3 saints. As the others laughed, the 2 calm cultivators closed their eyes and ignored the goings-on. The 3 old men from the Sun Soul Society, responsible for the boat, looked more arrogant than ever. They had run this boat for 60 years and never heard of anyone successfully charging through. After a few days, the happiness had lessened a bit, but more explosions sounded from the distance, and the magical symbols, lightning and wind, seemed nervous. The sounds made the group even more excited. They didn't need explanation now, they knew what the sounds meant. Soon, their conversation resumed. Ha ha ha, don't tell me another person is trying. Another person who doesn't know their limits. I never imagined this trip would be so fascinating. What a pity, I truly wish I could watch. Everyone was excited, but the three old men were somewhat shocked. Just about every time they piloted, they heard explosions. However, it was rare to hear them twice in one trip. The three old men exchanged smiles but didn't think much about it, focused instead on piloting forward. The sounds didn't last long, only as long as an incense stick burns. Then they faded, and conversation resumed on the ship. However, about 4 days later the sounds returned. The passengers were astonished. What's going on? How could there possibly be 3 people crossing the Stormwind Divide? Something doesn't seem right. Everyone, do you think? Perhaps the person from the beginning didn't actually die. These words came from the weakest cultivator of the group, a young core formation cultivator. As soon as he spoke, everyone went quiet. The 2 cultivators who had remained calm the entire time suddenly opened their eyes, astonished by the implication. The 3 men in charge of the ship also looked shocked, but quickly recovered. No unfounded ravings allowed on board, growled one. This is the Stormwind Divide, said another. Other than the 3 saints of the Milky Way Sea, nobody can cross it. Obviously, an entire sect is trying to cross. It's not the first time. The passengers weren't sure whether to believe the old men. In any case, their happiness had clearly lessened. Meanwhile, Meng Hao flew through the storm gusts. Currently, he faced a 150-meter whip about 3 meters wide, savage in appearance. An enormous mountain surrounded and suppressed it. After half an incense stick burned, it howled and the mountain descended, sealing it completely. It shrank into Meng Hao's hand, which he put into his bag of holding. "Number 4, he said, eyes shining brightly. With a smile he turned and sped away. 2 more months passed. During that time the ship's group heard successive explosions. Soon, they had heard the sound 7 times. By now, their mood had changed from curiosity to shock. By the 13th set of explosions, they were filled with dread. Even the 3 old men were panting. After 2 months, the 20th set of explosions reached their ears. Everyone on the boat was now completely dumbfounded, especially after they realized the sounds were getting closer. During the 2 months, Meng Hao encountered magical symbols shaped as treasures. Whenever he did, he instantly attacked and subdued them. By this point, he was in the very depths of the Stormwind Divide, getting much closer to the pitch-black ship. As he got deeper, his speed was continually reduced. The wind's intensity hurt him and caused his body to break apart. He had to continually disseminate power from his cultivation base to hang on. The lightning now showed illusory figures within it that possessed sentience. Meng Hao was shocked. At one point, he caught sight of a bright white light in the pitch blackness, consuming lightning, and changed his course. What he saw was a toad gobbling up lightning. This was the first time he had seen symbols shaped as a beast. The toad was at least 300 meters long, formed from around 10,000 symbols. I wonder how far I am from the edge, he thought, avoiding the toad. The toad noticed him but ignored him as it consumed lightning. Meng Hao looked away and was about to speed off when he made a slight "ee" sound. He turned his head and sent divine sense out. Sure enough, he sensed a ship speeding through the air. Perfect. I can jump onto the ship and rest while I go the rest of the way. His eyes glittering, he proceeded toward it. This chapter was sponsored by Edward Smith. Chapter 651, My Tao is Nigh. That ship was the Sun Soul Society ship, which had listened to the ruckus caused by Meng Hao for 2 months. All aboard, the 3 old men, the 2 calm youths and the rest, were bewildered and filled with dread. Everyone wanted to emerge from the Stormwind Divide as soon as possible. During the past 2 months, they had heard explosions more than 20 times. By now, they all speculated it wasn't a group passing through, but a single individual. That person must be incredibly powerful to brave the spell formation and survive. Most importantly, the ship had a feng shui compass the 3 old men had pooled their power to use a month prior. The compass was rarely used. It had one function: send invisible waves into the divide, revealing a map on its surface showing locations of powerful spirit creatures formed of magical symbols. A month ago, using the map, they revealed the spirits as white dots. The entire area was densely covered. However, in the middle was a red dot. That red dot shocked everyone. A red dot represented an outside cultivator. During the past month, the white dots had been significantly reduced, as if the symbols intentionally avoided the area. The red dot representing the cultivator only grew brighter and more resplendent like fresh blood. Everyone looked on with wide eyes, panting. Worse, the red dot was moving at high speed toward the yellow dot on the map. That yellow dot represented their ship. Panicked cries erupted. "He's coming!" The cultivator crossing the Stormwind Divide is heading right toward us. The more than 10 cultivators aboard were pale-faced. Some rose to their feet in terror, filled with fear and awe. The three old men exchanged pale-faced glances. They could see bitterness and complex emotions in each other's eyes. They had never imagined witnessing such a shocking scene. They didn't know who this outsider was, but they knew with certainty that anyone surviving the depths of the divide would be spirit-severing. Spirit-severing eccentrics have strange dispositions. If he kills us, the sect won't interfere. It won't risk offending a spirit-severing expert for the likes of us. Damn it, why is this happening? If he wants to cross, fine, but why come after us? They sat there, perturbed. Just then, everyone watched in astonishment as a huge gust from the divide blasted the right side of the boat, causing the bloody glow to dim as if covered. Not a single sound could be heard. Everyone sat apprehensively, looking toward the wind. The fog outside roiled, and a stifling pressure began to bear down. Soon, a green figure strode through the air. His salt and pepper hair floated about him as he laid eyes on the ship. It was Meng Hao. As he caught sight of them, everyone looked at him. As soon as the three old men saw him, they trembled. "Third-generation disciples of the Sun Soul Society offer greetings, Senior," they said in unison. The intense pressure from Meng Hao caused them to breathe raggedly. Their nascent souls quivered under the pressure. Terror built up, especially when Meng Hao looked directly at them. His gaze was like a sharp blade, seeming to read their hearts with a glance. They were completely transparent before him. Without hesitation, the three old men clasped hands and bowed deeply. At the same time, the more than 10 passengers also clasped hands and bowed. Meng Hao's face was expressionless as he strode toward the ship. As he neared, a red shield sprang up, a defensive mechanism. When it appeared, the three old men's hearts pounded and their faces fell. They felt regret, sure a misunderstanding was about to occur. The shield wouldn't hinder an expert who survived the divide. At most, it might slow him momentarily. The unlucky ones would be themselves. They were about to lower it, but Meng Hao pushed directly into it. Zapping sounds rang out, but his face remained the same as he walked through. Most on the ship couldn't see what happened, but the three old men gasped in shock. Their shield was so ineffective. Completely beyond their imaginations, they instantly dropped to their knees and kowtowed. The two calm youths noticed the strangeness. They had been to the third ring before and understood the ship better. Currently, their faces flickered and hearts pounded. Meng Hao said nothing. He boarded, looked around, then sat cross-legged on the prow. He didn't speak, and the rest of the ship were as silent as cicadas in winter. The three old men didn't dare rise. The entire ship was quiet. After some time, Meng Hao casually said, "Do you have a map of the third ring?" Without hesitation, the three old men produced jade slips from their bags of holding and offered them respectfully. Meng Hao accepted, glanced at them, then eyed the feng shui compass. His eyes glittered and he nodded. "You're going to the third ring?" he asked. "Senior," replied one of the old men, "we are under orders to pilot this ship and deliver these passengers to the sea-hold in the third ring." "Would it be convenient for you to take me along?" asked Meng Hao coolly. "Senior, you are most welcome aboard. Thank you for staying to watch out for us. We can't thank you enough." The three old men attempted to be as respectful as possible, speaking in a nearly fawning tone. "Well, let's get moving," said Meng Hao, closing his eyes. The three old men agreed immediately, then carefully rose. Sighing with relief inwardly, they sent the ship forward at the highest speed. As they proceeded, no one dared speak. The ship was quiet. The ship wasn't as fast as Meng Hao could move, but had the advantage of ease. He sat cross-legged meditating for a few days. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the feng shui compass. A 1,000-symbol spirit was floating not far off. After half an incense stick burned, it was close enough to see, an iron chain floating in the storm winds. It ignored the ship, occasionally attempting to consume lightning. Meng Hao suddenly stood up. "Stop the ship. Wait for me," he strode out. The three old men and passengers were shocked as he left. Immediately, the iron chain sensed him. It whipped around, and an intensely bleak killing will rose to the heavens. The lightning turned red and whistled toward him. However, before it could get near, Meng Hao performed an incantation. Instantly, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth characters appeared, surrounding the chain. He stepped forward and punched. The iron chain collapsed, sending 1,000 symbols in all directions. He performed another incantation, and the mountain-consuming incantation caused 1,000 mountains to appear. They covered the symbols, then merged into a huge peak, which shrank into his palm where he sealed it. After putting it in his bag of holding, he returned to the ship. The entire spectacle took 10 breaths. His actions were as natural as floating clouds and flowing water, completely efficient. Everyone who watched was thoroughly shaken. The people on the boat stared blankly. The two cultivators who had been to the third ring were breathing heavily, well aware of how mighty a 1,000-symbol spirit was. Their fear of Meng Hao reached a new peak. By now, they were certain the explosions they'd heard more than 20 times came from him. They could never have imagined a terrifying cultivator could subdue and capture symbols. Most shocked were the three old men. They were disciples of the Sun Soul Society, far more knowledgeable about the divide. Although others were unaware symbols could be subdued, they knew. Every few hundred years, powerful experts from the three sects entered under a patriarch to collect them. Such spirits were useful to patriarchs. No one knew exactly how patriarchs used them, but the symbols were the essence of the spell formation. 1,000-symbol spirits especially were comparable to spirit-severing cultivators, unpredictable and virtually indestructible. Only the three saints could subdue them. SS Senior, sir, how many 1,000-symbol spirits have you collected? Asked one old man, his face pale, voice quavering. More than 20, replied Meng Hao from his position on the prow. He glanced at the old man. More than 20. The old man's face fell and he began to pant. He turned to the other two and roared, "Get the ship moving, top speed." They didn't need reminding. Hearing Meng Hao's words, they trembled, as if they had thought of something even more terrifying. They rotated their cultivation bases at top speed to push the boat forward as fast as possible. Meng Hao's eyes flickered as he looked at the old man. The man looked back with a wry smile, face full of anxiety. Senior, perhaps you don't know that in a 100-year period, no more than 5,000-symbol spirits can be collected. That number can't be exceeded, or else the Yellow Springs underworld ship will appear. The Yellow Springs emerge, the underworld ship appears, Dao seeking forbidden zone. As soon as he spoke, the storm winds around them suddenly stopped. The lightning froze midair and the fog stilled. It seemed time, the very laws of heaven and earth, had become completely motionless. At the same time, an archaic voice rang out. Filled with the air of ages, it sounded as if a veil of rot had lifted. The hoarse voice echoed from the distance. Long ago, you chose to continue onward until nothing was left. Long ago, I chose to continue onward until only I was left. Who am I? Who are you? Unfathomable bleached bones, the beginnings of eras, my Tao is nigh. Chapter 652, Underworld Ship. As the voice echoed, all of Meng Hao's hair stood on end. An indescribable feeling washed through him as if an ancient, icy hand were caressing his neck. An aura of putrefaction filled the area. Everything on the ship suddenly seemed to slow down. In a moment, thousands of years seemed to pass. Everyone on the ship went pale and began to shiver. Fear filled their faces. Even those who didn't know of the Yellow Springs underworld ship could tell they were in critical danger. Terror filled the three old men. They employed all their cultivation base power, even consuming pills, to push the boat forward. Meng Hao took a deep breath and rotated his cultivation base to dispel the coldness. One of the old men yelled hoarsely, "Don't look back, listen to me, under no circumstances look back. Never gaze upon the path to the Yellow Springs, turn your head and you're done." A few people contemplated turning back. However, after hearing his words, they trembled and didn't dare turn their heads. Meng Hao's eyes flashed. Behind him, sobbing sounds rose and fell, the weeping of countless people. Everything grew colder. In the dim light, white strands like hair swirled in the air. "The end of my Tao is nigh," said the voice filled with decay. It was getting closer. A cold gleam appeared in Meng Hao's eyes on the prow. Though he didn't turn back, energy in his body grew focused. The ship picked up speed, but everything around it was motionless. Even faster, it couldn't escape the white strands filling the area. The ship seemed mired in a painting of motionlessness. No matter how hard the three old men pushed, They weren't moving fast enough. The aura of rot grew closer, the underworld ship approaching. Even though their ship wasn't moving, time on board seemed to speed up. Everyone trembled, sensing their life force draining. Despair filled the three old men. Meng Hao lifted his right foot and stamped it softly onto the deck. Instantly, power rumbled from his cultivation base into the ship. The deck shattered, but the ship surged forward with incredible speed. It seemed they would break free from the motionless world. The three old men gasped, hope appearing in their faces as they assisted. The ship broke free from the painting. Movement became visible around them. Eventually, they reached a speed combating the law that caused stillness. The air began to move, and stillness seemed to shatter. At this point, when everything seemed to begin moving, Meng Hao heard a sigh in his ear. Then a man's voice filled with boundless love. "Hayar, have you been safe all these years? Your mother didn't agree, but as your father I insisted it must be this way. Don't blame her." Meng Hao trembled. He recognized the voice, pieces of it remained in his memory. After so many years, he knew it was his father's voice. He stood silently. He didn't look back as the ship sped forward. Motionlessness gave way to movement. The white strands slowly moved backward, freeing the ship. Then Meng Hao heard another voice. "Hayar, do you still remember me? I'm your mother. Look back, let me see your face. It's been so many years, we've missed you." His entire body trembled, his head moving slightly. Complex emotions appeared in his eyes as he breathed. He didn't look back. Instead, he focused on controlling the boat. The front finally pierced out of the painting. He could see the border of the still region up ahead. They were almost free. Deep in your heart is obsession. This voice wasn't his parents'. It was the ancient, decaying voice. It seemed confused, as if too filled with infinite obsession. "You are a living being encountered on the path to the Yellow Springs. I can help fulfill your obsession. Look back, and you'll see what your parents look like." Meng Hao's cultivation base stopped. He poured no more power into the ship standing on the prow. Directly ahead was the edge of motionlessness. Beyond it lay freedom. Meng Hao knew that looking back would likely cause something untoward. However, those words had completely shaken him. No one else heard the words in his ear, not even the three old men. Everyone trembled in a daze. Meng Hao was the only lucid one. He suddenly smiled, an unrestrained smile filled with a will of purification. He murmured, "What's the harm in turning my head? In my life of cultivation, I cultivate my heart. My path is understanding and truth. If I don't look back, how could I claim to cultivate my heart?" His eyes filled with bright light as he casually turned to look behind him. Countless white strands floated in the air, twisting around the ship. The strands originated from an enormous battleship. The ship was 3,000 meters long, radiating an archaic air as if it had existed countless ages. It was dilapidated, bearing the marks of war. At the prow, a figure stood, an old man in pitch-black armor. His features were unclear, but his body looked as though it had rotted inside the armor for ages. 1. This is not the first time an armored figure was mentioned in connection to the Milky Way Sea. Check out chapters 555 and 632. The white strands were actually the man's hair. As soon as Meng Hao laid eyes on him, the old man seemed to notice. His head lifted, and he looked at Meng Hao. As their gazes met, Meng Hao's mind filled with rumbling. A vision appeared. He saw a coffin covered with carvings of 9 butterflies. The coffin rested on an ancient battlefield. Surroundings were devoid of color except black and white. The vision lasted only a few breaths, then dissipated. Meng Hao panted as he regained consciousness. "His Dao seed," said the armored figure softly, his voice hoarse. "In all the years of all the living things I've encountered, I've seen countless Dao seeds. You, however, are different. Go." The old man sat cross-legged in his armor as though he would never stand. His voice was filled with reminiscence. Slowly, his hair pulled away from Meng Hao's ship. At the same time, the 3,000-meter battleship backed away, fading as if about to vanish. The stillness also began to disappear. As the ship vanished, Meng Hao suddenly spoke. "Senior, you haven't fulfilled your promise." Immediately, stillness returned. The old man gave Meng Hao a profound gaze. That gaze contained the transformations of the entire world. It contained the turnings of time as it poured into his eyes. Instantly, a roaring sound filled his mind. In his vision, he saw Mount Daqing. Outside, it was a whistling violet wind. Fog roiled, covering the mountain in Yunji County. Within the city, lamps in the houses extinguished except for one. Inside, lights danced, illuminating a middle-aged man at the window. His thoughts were unclear. Weeping sounded from the bedroom. Through the door, a woman's silhouette appeared. She held a boy in her arms, tears streaming down her face. The boy had intelligent eyes, but now they were filled with confusion. The violet wind blew fog until it completely covered the county. Far above in the black sky, a violet sun appeared. It caused indescribable pressure to weigh down on the county. In that moment, the man pushed open the door and walked into the fog. The woman wiped her tears, looked back at the boy for a moment. Then she turned and walked away. In that moment, Meng Hao clearly saw her face. She was beautiful, gentle, her tears filled with reluctance to part. But she left the boy in the room, frightened, confused, helpless. "Dad, Mom," cried the boy, growing more frightened. He ran into the fog. "Dad, Mom, where are you? I'm scared." His young voice quavered. He seemed terrified. The cold wind and fog surrounded him but couldn't suppress his cries echoing into it. His sobbing grew shrill as he ran. He suddenly tripped and fell, scraping his knees and tearing his garment. His hair was in disarray, tears streaming down his face. All he wanted was his parents, but he didn't notice the black, spectral hand stretching toward his head from within the fog. This chapter was sponsored by Anonymous and Michael Harrison. Chapter 653, Demons Stir in the Third Ring. Meng Hao watched the scene with the boy, obviously himself. Yet searching his mind, no such memory existed. He remembered that night, the violet wind, countless bizarre voices. That was the night his parents went missing. He remembered waking fuzzily, not quite remembering. The only thing he remembered was his torn garment. When he saw what happened in the vision, it felt like lightning striking his mind. Then he saw the spectral hand reaching toward the boy. A man appeared behind him. He gave a cold snort, gripped the hand between his fingers and snapped it off. The hand disintegrated into powder, and a blood-curdling scream sounded. A ghostly figure flew into the violet fog. The boy was alarmed, then turned his head. Joy appeared on his face. Tears rolling down his cheeks, he rushed into the man's arms. "Dad, where did you go? I couldn't find you, The man didn't pursue the figure. He knelt before the boy, his face filled with love and doubt. He reached out and tousled his hair. He was silent for a long moment before speaking softly. "Don't cry, Hayar. Mom and Dad have to go away for a while. We'll all see each other again one day." As soon as he heard, the boy grabbed the man's robe. "Where are you going? I don't want you to go." The man said nothing. He patted the boy's head and after a long moment said, "The Eastern Lands." His expression was filled with intense love and pain. Then he reached to touch the boy. His hand flickered with light, and the boy's eyes closed in sleep. He held the boy in his arms and walked back into the house. He gently placed him on the bed, then stood watching. Time passed, and he finally sighed. Meng Hao saw the man's profile outlined by lamplight. He was handsome and dignified, looking both familiar and strange. Looking at him caused Meng Hao's heart to pound. After a long moment, the man leaned down and kissed the boy on the head. When he raised, his expression was one of pain and farewell. He left the house, walked into the violet wind and fog, left Yunji County and Mount Dacheng and disappeared. As the vision ended, a tremor ran through Meng Hao and he regained clarity. He stood on the ship's deck. Only storm winds surrounded them. No white strands, no underworld ship, only the storm wind divide. Everyone else was asleep. The surroundings were quiet. Meng Hao looked around, then sat cross-legged staring into the distance, somewhat dazed. After some time, the three old men awoke. Then one by one, so did the others. They looked at Meng Hao with dread and gratitude. Meng Hao didn't speak, so neither did they. The ship continued for several more months. Eventually, it neared the end of the divide. The entire time, Meng Hao never rose. When symbol spirits appeared, he didn't look at them. He only stared ahead. No one knew his thoughts. After months, the boat reached the divide's end, a dock visible through the darkness, their final destination. Meng Hao stood up and sent his divine sense over the entire ship and its people. This was a minor magical technique from the demon Immortal Pagoda, a Taoist magic erasing all trace of him from their minds. Then he flew out to disappear. About 10 breaths after he vanished, everyone regained their senses. They looked confused, but soon the ship reached the dock. They broke through an invisible barrier. The blackness gave way to intense light. It was sunlight shining on the sea and waves. The group inhaled salt air, and they knew they were now in the third ring. As exclamations rang from the ship, Meng Hao emerged alone. He stood on the sea's surface looking up at the sun. Whether that vision was real, the Eastern Lands are definitely where I need to go. After I resolve this crisis with the 10th Wang clan patriarch, I'll head to the eastern lands. I'll visit the great Tang Chang'an and fulfill my childhood dream. He looked toward the east, wishing he could see it now. Maybe I can find clues about Dad and Mom and what happened that year. What was the violet wind and fog, and what did it have to do with me? And also, he lowered his head and looked at the back of his hand. Every breakthrough brought a new symbol there. That mark had been with him for a long time, and if he couldn't understand it, he'd feel as if he'd wasted his cultivation. Didn't I notice how strange Fang Yu was acting? Am I unwilling to accept the truth? In his thoughts, rare weakness appeared in his eyes. Finally, he sighed and pushed the thoughts down. He suddenly felt very lonely, the kind where you look around and wonder where home is. He'd practiced cultivation for hundreds of years, but now had no friends. This caused the weakness to grow stronger. Is this cultivation, a path a person must walk alone? He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, no weakness appeared, only unswerving determination. Meng Hao took a deep breath and looked around with a sharp gleam. Everything looked almost the same as the fourth ring. However, he could sense much more demonic chi here. No one else could detect it, but as a demon sealer, Meng Hao naturally could. What he didn't know was that countless eyes suddenly opened on the seafloor. All stared up at him. In the deepest sea, undercurrents swirled as if a tempest were forming. Countless red eyes emanated intense desire, as if they'd finally seen hope. Meng Hao muttered to himself and sped off. After flying for the time of an incense stick, he frowned. The sea ahead suddenly exploded as a giant tentacle shot toward him. It moved with incredible speed like a shadow. It looked like a flaming whip ripping through the air. It was an attack with nascent soul power. Meng Hao gave a cold snort, waved his hand toward it, and made a grasping motion. The tentacle stopped midair just feet in front of him, seized by an enormous invisible hand. The tentacle was completely black, covered with countless suction discs. It squirmed and wriggled, struggling to free itself. It was sickening, and following it revealed an enormous creature in the churning waters below. At the same time, whooshing sounds rang as more than 10 tentacles burst toward Meng Hao. He watched with a cold gleam, then clutched out with his right hand and pulled. Boom! The sea exploded under incredible power, as an enormous 300-meter cuttlefish was wrenched up to hover in midair. Meng Hao relaxed his hand and stepped forward. He disappeared, then reappeared in front of it. His hand formed into a fist which he struck out. A massive boom sounded as the cuttlefish exploded into countless pieces raining onto the sea. Within the flesh was a bluish crystalline object the size of a finger. As soon as he saw it, he grabbed it. When it touched his palm, it let off a gentle glow and spiritual ripples. This looks like a mid-grade spirit stone. It must be a demon heart. After examining it, he put it away, then began to leave, but he frowned. He sent his divine sense out and his face sank. Within range, he sensed more than 20 different sea demons speeding through the sea toward him. Each emitted violent auras and intense avarice. They viewed themselves as hunters and him as prey. Is this why the third ring is so dangerous? He thought, furrowing his brow. He waved his hand toward the sea below. Instantly, the surface rumbled and sank, forming a crater roughly 300 meters wide. With another wave, he made it rotate. The rotation caused a huge roaring sound. It looked like a black hole forming in the water. Great waves surged, revealing 7 or 8 vicious sea demons. These didn't have high cultivation bases, early nascent soul stage, some even core formation. They looked at Meng Hao with red eyes and vicious greed, as if a single bite would give them enlightenment. Their gazes filled him with disgust. He felt almost as if the 10th Wang clan patriarch were looking at him. Coldness flickered in his eyes as he snorted coldly, his right hand slowly clenching into a fist. The vortex in the sea slowly constricted, tightening and closing. Seawater instantly turned red with blood, and miserable howls sounded. When Meng Hao opened his fist, the waters spread out and the vortex resumed. A moment later, Meng Hao waved his sleeve, causing more than 20 demon hearts to fly from the reddened water. He put them into his bag of holding, then transformed into a beam of light shooting off. All that remained was blood slowly dissolving into seawater. Everything was calm and peaceful. The third ring was large and contained many cultivators, most organized into groups of 3 or 5 to hunt sea demons across the third ring. Encountering a sea demon was rare fortune. Of course, some powerful sea demons could also bring incredible disaster. There were even some areas within the third ring that were specially noted in Jade slip maps. Anyone who wanted to enter such areas had to prepare special items ahead of time. Furthermore, there was one particular city in the third ring called Sohe established jointly by the three sects, allowing cultivators to trade for supplies. The city was enormous, towering above the water like a huge fortress. It was covered with shocking spell formations that had protected it for countless years against sea demon attacks. Within the city were garrisoned more than 10,000 cultivators from the three sects. In addition, there was always one of the three saints in command of the city. They rotated every 100 years. For years, the three sects had maintained an incredible reputation, to the point where even the powers in the southern domain, eastern lands, western desert, and northern reaches acknowledged them. Several days later, Meng Hao flew over the third ring. He raised his right hand, and lightning crackled. Instantly, a 30-meter-long sea demon comparable to a Foundation establishment cultivator was destroyed. This particular sea demon lacked a demon heart, yet as soon as it detected Meng Hao's aura, it went mad and attacked with abandon. Meng Hao had encountered 7 or 8 sea demons like this. Something's not right, he thought, frowning. It almost felt as if he were going around the third ring with a big target on his back. No matter where he went, sea demons would come for him. His eyes flickered as he thought, then sent his divine sense out. After searching for 3 days, he found a group of 5 cultivators cautiously hunting sea demons. He followed from a distance, undetected. However, after only half a day, he sensed 8 frenzied sea demons closing in, bursting from the water with howls. Shock flooded the 5 cultivators' faces. How could there be so many sea demons? Don't tell me some sort of treasure is in the area. The 5 fled in alarm. Of course, the sea demons weren't after them, so they escaped easily. Meng Hao floated in the air, his brow furrowed. Having observed what was happening, he understood that he himself was attracting the sea demons. Is there something special about me that drives them crazy? He thought, his eyes flickering. Below, the sea demons charged across the water at top speed. Meng Hao snorted coldly, then waved his right hand. Instantly, the sword tip with 30,000 years of time power flew out. Under his control, it became a black beam that shot toward one particular sea demon shaped like a crab. When it shot through the sea demon, the creature instantly turned gray, as if it had aged tens of thousands of years and crumbled to ash. The beam pierced through 6 more sea demons, all of whom, regardless of cultivation level, instantly withered and crumbled to ash. As for the final sea demon, shaped like a sea turtle, terror filled its eyes, yet it could not resist charging toward Meng Hao. It was an instinct it couldn't control. With a howl, it charged onward. Meng Hao glanced coldly at the sea turtle, which was only a few dozen meters long. He put away the time sword tip, then performed an incantation. The mountain-consuming incantation summoned an enormous mountain peak that descended. It smashed down onto the sea turtle, completely sealing it inside. Meng Hao waved his sleeve to collect the mountain and the other demon hearts in the area. Then he departed into the distance. Not long after, Meng Hao appeared near an island. Instantly, roaring erupted from it. Meng Hao frowned somewhat grudgingly. He had no idea what beast or sea demon was there, but without investigating, he sent a palm strike toward the source. The island shook as the palm attack slammed into the source of the roar. The island shook, then fell completely silent. Whatever creature was there had been killed with a single strike. Meng Hao sat down cross-legged, then waved his right hand. Immediately, the mountain peak flew out from his bag of holding, within which was sealed the sea turtle. When Meng Hao saw the sea turtle, he thought of old turtle Reliance. He frowned, then waved a finger to make the mountain peak vanish. The sea turtle glared at him viciously with red eyes. Then it howled and charged. Meng Hao's right hand instantly waved down. A boom rattled out as a huge, invisible palm crushed down onto the sea turtle. No matter how it struggled, it couldn't free itself. It could only look at Meng Hao and roar. "You want to eat me?" asked Meng Hao coolly. He sent out his demon sealer aura, but it provoked no reaction from the sea turtle. It continued to roar and snap at him as if it wanted to swallow him in a single bite. So it's not because I'm a demon sealer, he thought. He retracted the aura and began removing his bags of holding, setting them aside. The sea turtle didn't even glance at them. It glared only at him. It's not in my bags of holding. Could it be me personally? Is it the fleshly sanctification? After some thought, he couldn't come up with any better explanation. After all, he possessed characteristics of the demon immortal body. Meng Hao found it plausible that this could attract the sea demons. After more thought, his eyes shone brightly. He raised his right hand, cut his finger, and squeezed out some blood. The sea turtle instantly went into a frenzy, howling and writhing as it attempted to charge and reach the blood. So that's what's going on, thought Meng Hao. The wound on his finger instantly healed and he rose to his feet. Then he raised his hand to eliminate the troublesome sea turtle. However, before he could complete the motion, his hand stopped. What if that isn't the complete explanation? He thought. He glanced at the turtle, then closed his eyes to recall a divine ability from the demon immortal pagoda, one similar to the memory erasure technique he'd used before. Before, using such an ability would have caused backlash. Now, with his increased power, he could minimize the recoil. His body flashed, and he appeared beside the sea turtle. Even as it eyed him hungrily, his hand pressed down onto the turtle's head. Soul search. It was only a light touch, but the sea turtle's body immediately went stiff. White light emanated from Meng Hao's eyes. In moments, his senses entered the sea turtle's mind. He sensed brutality, madness, and desire. Random memories flooded his mind. Using the technique for the first time, Meng Hao felt disoriented. However, his powerful cultivation suppressed the ill feeling, and he began to search for an answer in the sea turtle's memories. He searched for a long time, until his concentration suddenly peaked. Within the sea turtle's intact memories, he had encountered a word. A lily. Meng Hao's face flickered. He pulled his right hand away. The sea turtle now lay prone, gasping for breath. Such a soul search would leave it dead or injured. Lily, murmured Meng Hao. With that, he looked down at himself, then violently pressed his hand against his belly. His entire body shook as it grew weaker in both cultivation base and qi. As he grew weaker, he performed an incantation gesture. A seal appeared which he placed on himself, causing his energy to fade. Under the pressure, his cultivation base sank to the nascent soul stage, then core formation, then foundation establishment. Now that he had weakened himself to this extent, another bizarre aura appeared. This aura was none other than the resurrection lily, S. Normally, Meng Hao was too powerful and kept the aura suppressed. Now, by weakening himself, he revealed it more openly. As soon as the aura appeared, something shocked Meng Hao deeply. The sea turtle, which moments before had been gasping at death's door, suddenly lifted its head. Its eyes focused. It roared and charged toward Meng Hao. Though suppressed, it didn't seem to care. It roared and struggled until its shell cracked and shattered. Its body fell apart, but its eyes were bright red and its head stretched out violently until it ripped off from the body. Blood spattered as the dying head stretched toward Meng Hao, its mouth gaping. Meng Hao backed up a few paces. He could clearly see the desire and madness in the dying eyes. His face flickered as he looked out at the surrounding sea. Huge waves rolled across its surface, and countless terrifying auras charged from all directions, filled with madness. Meng Hao immediately severed the aura and released the seal. His energy rapidly rose, suppressing the resurrection lily's aura. The madness surrounding him diminished slightly. Meng Hao instantly transformed into green smoke and vanished. When he reappeared, he floated far in the distance. So, the resurrection lily is what's attracting the sea demons. Now that I think about it, Master told me of someone from the Milky Way Sea who came seeking medicine for resurrection lily infection. I don't know if he's alive or dead now. I just remember he was from the Milky Way Sea. 1. Grandmaster Pill Demon told Meng Hao about a person from the Milky Way Sea named Reverend Silverlamp, who came to him asking for help regarding the resurrection lily. That was in chapter 294. If I can find him, perhaps he can help me with my resurrection lily. Meng Hao vanished again. Meanwhile, far from the third ring, in the depths of the second ring, the water in this area was black and everything was quiet. Even the sea's surface was calm without a ripple. There was also a black island, upon which sat a cross-legged figure. He had the physical appearance of a cultivator, except that a spiraling horn stuck out from his forehead. He was surrounded by vast quantities of bones, many belonging to cultivators. His eyes suddenly opened, revealing 2 pupils in each. A savage aura exploded from him. Resurrection Lily. This chapter was sponsored by Cherungs. Chapter 655, Hunting Sea Demons. A month flashed by. During that time, Meng Hao swept freely across the third ring. Given his cultivation level, no sea demons could stand against him. Any that appeared near him were destroyed. Sometimes he didn't need to act personally. He would send the wooden time sword tip circulating around him, striking at a mere thought. 25 days earlier, a group of roughly a dozen cultivators fled from 2 roaring sea demons. In their desperation, a black beam appeared and shot through the 2 sea demons, transforming them to ash. The demon hearts flew out. 20 days earlier, a haughty-faced man fought close quarters with a sea demon when a black beam appeared, transforming it to ash. Similar scenes played out throughout the third ring. Gradually, rumors spread about the black sword tip. After a month of domination, Meng Hao had collected nearly 1,000 demon hearts. Most were low-grade, with only a few being mid-grade. Meng Hao was unsatisfied, though anyone else would have rejoiced. Chosen from the sects and clans owe me spirit stones. My gains this month are negligible. This doesn't compare to conning people. He hovered, looking out at the boundless sea, wondering how many sea demons existed below. If I could get some high-grade spirit stones, or even ultra-high-grade spirit stones, then things would be worth it. He had some ultra-high-grade spirit stones in his bag of holding, but not many. They were incredibly valuable, and every time he thought about wasting 2,000 years ago, it sickened him. Short on money again. If I had enough spirit stones, I could copy more wooden time swords, or maybe even the time sword tip, except I would need at least 10 million spirit stones. He looked at the sea and clenched his jaw. If the Wang clan patriarch isn't dead, danger comes. I must grow stronger fast. Determination appeared in his eyes. He vanished into thin air. Several days later, Meng Hao sat cross-legged on an island in the third ring, its area long cleared. The time sword tip circulated around him. He looked at his bag of holding as a small mountain flew out. Sealed within was the 1,000-symbol spirit battle axe he had captured. After a glance, he lifted his hand, causing the mountain to vanish. The battle axe rumbled and was about to attack when Meng Hao waved his sleeve, enveloping the area in pressure. He reached out, but the battle axe popped into over 1,000 magical symbols. His hand grasped only air. The magical symbols cascaded about, seemingly proud. They swirled behind Meng Hao and reformed into a battle axe that chopped toward him. "Hex," said Meng Hao coolly. He didn't even turn his head, simply pointing backward with his left index finger. The 1,000 symbols trembled and struggled. When Meng Hao punched out, the battle axe collapsed into symbols. He performed an incantation, and the mountain-consuming incantation appeared as 1,000 mountains covering the symbols. Meng Hao performed all these actions smoothly, unfazed. His expression indifferent, he caused the symbols to approach one by one. He imprinted them with divine sense, a process taking several hours. After it was done, his eyes glittered as he allowed the mountains to loosen and free the symbols. The symbols seemed to have lost their sentience, floating there flickering with light but unmoving. "Consolidate," said Meng Hao coolly. Immediately, the symbols formed into a battle axe that rotated around him. After controlling it for a few moments, he used the same method on the more than 20,000 symbol spirits in his bag of holding. He finished days later, after which more than 20,000 magical symbols whistled through the air around him. They turned into a vortex of storm winds, emanating incredibly threatening pressure. A strange light appeared in Meng Hao's eyes. The incredible power of this treasure was second only to the symbol spirits he had seen in the stormwind divide that formed into enormous ferocious beasts. However, it wastes too much of my cultivation base, he thought. After consuming medicinal pills, he sat down to meditate. At dawn, he opened his eyes. "The time has come," he said. Taking a deep breath, he performed an incantation, placing multiple seals on his body that caused his energy to weaken rapidly. Soon, the aura of the resurrection lily appeared again. Previously, Meng Hao had assumed only he could sense it. But in the third ring, he understood that to see demons, the resurrection lily was like an unknown tonic that could provoke incredible transmogrification. As soon as the aura spread, the surrounding sea churned. Countless glowing red eyes opened in the depths. In a blink, the sea demons shot toward something they instinctively had to consume. Some distance away, a multicolored jellyfish stalked a group of cultivators under the surface, waiting to attack. Just as it was about to move, it trembled and shot away. In another location, a group of a few dozen cultivators fought 3 sea demons. Suddenly, the sea demons roared, dove down, and vanished. Scenes like this played out throughout the third ring. Many cultivators noticed. Some in midair were shocked to see waves sweep across the sea and countless sea demons swimming through the water. "Don't tell me it's a beast tide." Even as so many were shocked, Meng Hao sat calmly on the island. After an incense stick's worth of time, an enormous pincer shot out from the seawater toward him. At the same time, multiple sea demons burst out to charge toward Meng Hao. His eyes glittered coldly as he waved his hand, causing a 1,000-symbol battle axe to fly out. It swept across the area, explosions destroying the sea demons. Even as they died, another 100 or more sea demons emerged, their visages wild and greedy. Meng Hao had become a whirlpool that caused desire to well up in all the sea demons of the third ring. Calm and unhurried, Meng Hao manipulated the magical symbols. With a wave of a finger, 1,000 symbols flew out, surrounding the island and preventing any sea demon from reaching it more than 300 meters. 4 explosive hours passed. More than 1,000 sea demons had charged from the waves. They didn't understand the difference between life and death, disregarding their own lives as they charged relentlessly. Booms rang out as Meng Hao's hands moved faster, controlling 8,000 symbols whistling through the air. They formed various magical items, including the battle axe, emanating incredible might. Another 4 hours passed, during which Meng Hao consumed medicinal pills 3 times to support his cultivation base. The island was now surrounded by densely packed sea demons. There were so many he could barely see. The sight was shocking enough even for Meng Hao, but he wanted more sea demons. The magical symbols were now 13,000 strong, whistling to create a droning sound that filled the ears. From afar, the island appeared surrounded by a vortex of storm winds and black fog. Outside were endless sea demons charging forward to reach it. The roaring was astonishing, blood showering everywhere. Meng Hao was unsure how many sea demons he had killed. Only the parrot and meat jelly knew, flying around gleefully collecting demon hearts as they fell. But then a howl split the air from the distance. Unique, it sounded like a weeping girl, causing Meng Hao to look up. His divine sense swept out, and he saw sea demons trembling and making way for an enormous 7-colored jellyfish swimming forward. On its head, shockingly, was a white flower. A white-bone lily looking like bleached bones. It swayed back and forth, draining all color from the area, replacing it with black and white. As Meng Hao looked over, he suddenly felt the island shake beneath him, as if an enormous creature below were attacking. His face flickered, but he was powerless to support the island. Cracks spread across its surface, and it collapsed into countless pieces. Huge waves rolled across the seawater as the entire island sank. Meng Hao was pulled down with it. In that instant, the sea demons grew even more frenzied. The world beneath the surface was their domain, so they charged with even more madness. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. The world beneath the surface might be theirs, but it was also his. He had formed the water character of the 5 elements totem and practiced cultivation on the bottom of the violet sea for 100 years. Why would he care about undersea pressure? His expression was cold as he lifted his hand to cause 20,000 glittering magical symbols to circulate out. They transformed into 20 magical items that shot toward the sea demons, slaughtering them. The explosions didn't leave the seawater, but they gave rise to enormous waves that swept through the third ring. Cultivators who saw them were shocked and intrigued. Furthermore, some incredibly powerful sea demons of the third ring now moved toward Meng Hao, filled with madness. Meng Hao was under the water, surrounded by 20,000 magical symbols sweeping around him in a tempest. The water seethed, and sea demons couldn't get within 300 meters. Of course, the sea demons attacked with reckless abandon, driven by instinct to fight even unto death. His eyes flickered as the magical symbols surged around him, slaughtering the enemy. Waves surged across more than half the third ring as more sea demons arrived. Soon, even Seahold City was affected, shocking the cultivators observing it. The waves crashed into Seahold, established by the 3 sects. Bugles filled the air as the garrison cultivators armed themselves and entered battle formation. Powerful experts emerged, their faces grim. They looked to the distance at countless waves surging toward them. Could it be that the sea devils of the second ring are attacking? Impossible. The sea devils of the second ring are few and rarely appear, almost never entering the third ring. To them, the third ring sea demons are common animals. They view themselves as emperors and kings. But if not the sea devils, what's causing these transformations? Everyone discussed the matter, and mention of the sea devils filled faces with fear. Outside the city, crashing waves slammed into the walls. The sounds echoed throughout the city, causing cultivators' faces to flicker with various expressions. In the middle of Seahold stood an enormous tower nearly 3,000 meters tall. Its surrounding areas were forbidden to all but the invited. This was a cultivation area for the 3 saints. At its highest level sat a middle-aged man in a red robe, surnamed Lin. He had long black hair and stood with hands clasped behind his back, looking out a window with a frown. "The waves are 3 meters higher seemingly for no reason," he said coolly. Something provoked the sea demons. They're heading in the same direction, paying respects, summoned, enticed. His eyes shone brilliantly, and as he spoke, his words caused ripples to spread in the air. The sea demons are not intelligent. Desire drives them. He stepped forward and vanished. Shockingly, he reappeared far outside Seahold. Waves surged beneath his feet as he clasped his hands behind his back and strode forward. With a single step, he vanished and reappeared far distant. He repeated the process with incredible speed, faster than any nascent soul cultivator could achieve. As the red-robed man moved forward, Meng Hao was surrounded by 20,000 surging magical symbols. Blood filled the water as countless sea demons were destroyed. He had no idea how many he'd killed, but as he sank deeper, they seemed endless. A five-colored lightning bolt suddenly shot through the sea demon hordes. Wherever it went, they exploded. The lightning seemed filled with power to destroy heaven and earth. In a blink, it slammed into Meng Hao's surrounding symbols. Boom! 1,000 symbols instantly collapsed. The bolt shot toward Meng Hao, who looked up. When the island sank, he'd already noticed the approaching white-bone lily jellyfish. But after sinking, despite being unhampered, he found himself in a different situation than in the Violet Sea. Here, his divine sense had limitations. As vigilant as ever, when the lightning bore down, he lifted his right hand and pointed forward. The blood palm instantly appeared and shot forward. A boom sounded as the five-colored lightning spread around the blood palm, as if boring directly into it. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. He snorted coldly, flicked his sleeve, and performed an incantation. A face appeared before him, Meng Hao's own, eyes closed, shot forward. This was the first form of the blood immortal divine ability. Booming filled the seabed. As the lightning collapsed, the face's eyes opened and its lips spoke soundlessly. The soundless voice ripped the jellyfish into the open. 6 ripple-like formless sound waves swept forward. The first caused thousands of sea demons to explode. The second, third, and fourth caused more than 10,000 to collapse. The fourth and fifth ripples opened a path, revealing the enormous jellyfish. Sea demons scrambled clear as the sixth ripple shot toward it. The water distorted to form Meng Hao's face, rumbling toward the jellyfish. A brilliant five-colored glow spread from the jellyfish, transforming into a shield that shot out in defense. A huge boom transformed into an intense attack spreading in all directions. Meng Hao snorted coldly, about to slay the jellyfish when suddenly an incredible force shot toward him. Its intensity caused him to tremble. The magical symbol Tempest shuddered, another 1,000 symbols collapsing. As the force neared, his eyes glittered. He abandoned plans to slay the jellyfish and spun. His right hand clenched into a fist and punched directly at the incoming force. A bang sounded, seawater exploding in all directions. It was as if 2 enormous fists had slammed together in the water. A deep growl sounded as an enormous figure retreated from the force. Meng Hao could now clearly see the sea demon's source. It was a giant. A 3,000-meter-tall giant with 2 heads and completely blue scale-covered skin. Its eyes, however, were bright red as it stared at him. This was what had caused the island to collapse. Behind the giant swayed a white-bone lily. The white-bone lily was ghastly white. When Meng Hao looked at it, he could almost see a human face staring back with a strange expression. The gaze was filled with avarice and concentration, as if staring at something like itself. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. He had now seen 2 bizarre sea demons in the Milky Way Sea's third ring, both bearing strange white-bone lilies. When he looked at the white-bone lily, he could clearly sense his resurrection lily felt provoked and desired to attack. The pressure and danger had caused it to intentionally allow its aura to seep into his blood vessels. Meng Hao's mind trembled. He had fought the resurrection lily for years, suppressing it through force. But this was the first time it had abandoned resistance and merged its aura with him of its own initiative. As the aura merged, a bizarre light appeared in his eyes. He didn't resist, allowing the resurrection lily's aura to spread within him. Instantly, a 5-colored resurrection lily appeared behind him. The flower formed a face split into 2 parts. One part looked like Meng Hao, mild as Jade, the other vicious as a wicked spirit. 2 faces, 5 petals, 5 glowing colors. In a blink, the light filled the sea floor. Meng Hao's mind trembled, a strange glow appearing in his eyes. In that moment, he could sense the energy of heaven and earth. This wasn't his first time sensing it, but this was the most direct connection yet. He felt favored by heaven and earth, as if his existence was approved. With every breath, the power of heaven and earth flowed into him. Spiritual energy, demonic chi, anything beneficial flowed in. The feeling was indescribable, as if heaven and earth would do anything for him. The power was boundless. It felt like his destiny deepened, as if the heavens had opened their eyes to gaze upon him. Any living thing wishing to harm him would become an object of loathing to heaven and earth. The day the resurrection lily blooms with 7 colors, flowers bloom and flowers descend, 1,000 years. Don't tell me it's impossible to kill it. The realization hit Meng Hao, but he had no time to consider it. As the 5-colored resurrection lily appeared, the surrounding sea demons went into a frenzy. Their eyes turned red, seal marks appearing on their bodies. The seals resembled a spirit's face, almost like the earliest resurrection lily, except white. But looking closely, it wasn't the resurrection lily, it was a whitebone lily. This whitebone lily has a direct connection with the resurrection lily, but why so many in the Milky Way Sea? It seems almost every sea demon has one. His mind trembled as he looked at all the seals, his scalp growing numb. Could it relate to the Reverend Silver Lamp that Master spoke of? Meng Hao's face flickered as he looked again at the giant and jellyfish, realizing they differed from the other sea demons. They bore not marks of the whitebone lily, but actual living flowers. Currently, the 2 whitebone lilies swayed back and forth, looking as if they were about to bloom, each with 3 petals. This chapter was sponsored by Dang Quang Tran, John Smith, Sonny Gola, Dave Burko, Eric Lane, and Weevil. Chapter 657, Saint Sun's Soul of the 3 Sects. I remember Master told me Reverend Silverlamp came 700 years before, asking for help with the resurrection lily. Master helped somewhat but couldn't truly solve it. Then Reverend Silverlamp returned centuries later, having dispelled the poison. Could it be that these transformations in the sea demons in the Milky Way Sea have something to do with Reverend Silverlamp? Meng Hao's mind trembled. His eyes flickered. He couldn't let anxiety cloud him. He needed to allow time for clues to appear. The constant slaying coupled with his cultivation level had exhausted him. Even if he killed sea demons for days, countless remained. Besides, the drastic sea changes would soon attract outsiders. Well, first I'll kill you, he said to the giant. If it hadn't destroyed the island, he wouldn't be underwater. He controlled the magical symbols, sending them spreading to clear a battlefield. The giant approached roaring, surrounded by bubbles. Meng Hao snorted coldly and clenched his fist. First heaven destruction. His eyes glittered. An illusory image appeared on his hand, 2 hands merging together. This was the 9 heavens destruction, a Taoist magic from the demon immortal pagoda. After leaving the sect, he'd contemplated it often. When he met guiding Trirane, understanding of vibrations came to him. The seed sprouted in his mind, blooming into full comprehension. The 9 heavens destruction was vibration. His fist descended and water exploded. Bubbles collapsed as his fist shot like lightning into the giant. Bam! 2nd heaven, he punched again. The water seethed, creating gigantic waves. 3rd heaven, killing intent flickered as the fist descended. The giant screamed, a blood-curdling howl echoing from the seafloor. His fist slammed into its chest, tearing a huge hole. Within the mangled flesh, a crystalline stone the size of an infant's hand gleamed, almost a heart. His hand stretched out to grab the resplendent crystal and wrenched it away. The giant shook violently. The illusory resurrection lily behind him savagely enveloped the giant as a ghost image appeared over the whitebone lily. An invisible fight seemed to take place. All this happened in moments. Meng Hao grabbed the demon heart and backed up. The whitebone lily trembled and shattered, consumed instantly by the 5-colored resurrection lily. The lily looked more ferocious, reborn. Its 5-colored petals grew even more resplendent. Time to go, Meng Hao growled. The parrot, silently collecting demon hearts, flickered to his side. He transformed into green smoke and a black moon, shooting toward the surface. Sea demon hordes tried to obstruct him. The jellyfish went berserk, shooting countless lightning bolts. None hindered him. He performed an incantation, spinning over 10,000 magical symbols into a tempest of black fog. He shot out of the water. Countless sea demons erupted as well, unable to stop him as he transformed into a beam of light and vanished into the distance. Simultaneously, he forcefully suppressed the resurrection lily's aura. Willing or unwilling, struggling or not, it was completely pushed down. He moved at incredible speed, reaching 3,000 meters away. He was about to check his demon hearts when a red cloud appeared from the distance, speeding toward him. A huge face materialized within the cloud, rumbling toward him, emanating a spirit-severing aura that covered everything. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. He raised his hand, causing magical symbols to shoot up into a tempest that intercepted the cloud face. A huge boom. The cloud dispersed and his symbols collapsed. Scattered, Meng Hao shot backward, grim-faced. He looked to see a middle-aged man in a red robe striding forward expressionlessly. He glanced coldly at Meng Hao, gaze sharp. The spirit-severing aura within him pulsed brightly. The red-robed man's eyes narrowed slightly. He saw the tempest of magical symbols and understood the person before him was not weak. But not weak meant little. "Your first offense was chaos in the Milky Way Sea," he said coolly. "I don't care where you got those symbol spirits, they belong to the three sects. Outsiders can't possess them. That's your second offense. 2 crimes. Allow me to explain your punishment." The red-robed man waved his hand with a special technique. The magical symbol spirits trembled and wrenched themselves free from Meng Hao, shooting to his side. "I'm a saint, and these belong to me. I'll take them back. Now produce all the demon hearts and get out of the Milky Way Sea. 3 days if you're still here. Well, I'm lacking a puppet mount." Cold gleam in his eyes, superciliousness in his manner. His aura invoked profound reverence, making his words seem like heaven's will on the Milky Way Sea. Meng Hao's expression didn't change. He'd never seen this cultivator before, but at a glance, his cultivation was different from Patriarch Huyan. This man was apparently at the second severing level. His identity was obvious. "Can't we talk this over?" asked Meng Hao. "No," replied the red-robed man calmly. "But I won't hand over the demon hearts," said Meng Hao coolly, "or the symbol spirits." The red-robed man snorted coldly. He waved his right sleeve, causing over 100,000 symbol spirits to rush out. In a blink, they blotted the sky and cast everything into shadow. "Then you can stay behind. Your sect or clan can ransom you." He sent the 100,000 spirits spiraling toward Meng Hao. As they neared, Meng Hao slapped his bag of holding. An enormous bronze wheel flew out, covered with magical symbols that glowed brilliantly as it rotated. At the same time, time's power appeared, spreading to fill the area. The magical symbols suddenly revealed their ancientness and moved slower, allowing him to casually move through their midst. A time treasure, the red-robed man thought. Meng Hao performed an incantation and pointed forward. The time sword formation appeared, rotating into a lotus shape. The raging power of time swept in all directions, working in unison with the wheel as he flicked his sleeve, sending it toward the cultivator. "A time treasure," the red-robed man said coolly. "I underestimated you." He waved his hand, causing the 100,000 symbols to tremble. Instantly, 10,000 exploded, an immaterial blast tearing through time's power. The rest continued toward Meng Hao. Mountain-consuming incantation. Meng Hao moved forward, extending his hand and pushing it toward the sea. The seawater roiled and a trembling mountain rose from its depths. It shattered into countless fragments that reformed into a small mountain before him. This was his first time using a real mountain, with the incantation in the third ring. The remaining 90,000 symbols fought the mountain. Booming sounds echoed, but Meng Hao continued forward, now roughly 300 meters from the man. The man frowned and performed an incantation. He pointed skyward, and gleaming swords shot up from nearby seahold. 3 swords flew through the air, droning. Their incredible speed made them rapidly invisible. Many cultivators in the sea city saw and were shocked. The saint had encountered a formidable foe. Simultaneously, the 3 swords appeared before the man. They didn't pause, shooting directly toward Meng Hao. "These 3 swords were forged with sky-sun bone," said the man coolly. "Something rarely seen in the Milky Way Sea in 10,000 years. It borrows starlight and refines it into undying strength that overcomes any obstacle." As the swords neared, Meng Hao waved his sleeve. The time sword tip flew out, moving with incredible speed, piercing the air with ripples of time power. Shockingly, a strand of silk connected to the tip, flashing coldly in the sunlight. "This sword tip comes from a 70,000-year-old spring and autumn tree," said Meng Hao coolly. "The rest was destroyed by an immortal, but the tip is eternal. Time cannot harm it. I refined it into a treasure that can kill and exterminate any life. Nothing withstands it without withering. The silk is something rarely seen in heaven and earth. If it remains unbroken, I cannot be killed." The red-robed man's 3 swords halted. His pupils constricted as he stared at the tip. He sensed incredible time power emanating from it. If he got too close, he would begin to wither, his life force and longevity reduced. "You're a time cultivator," he said. "Your saint sun soul of the 3 sects," replied Meng Hao. Chapter 658, Hometown Alcohol. The red-robed man was Saint Sun Soul of the Sun Soul Society, one of the Milky Way Sea's 3 saints. Fond of red garments, his three swords could shake heaven and earth. When the demon tide threatened Seahold, he alone wielded them in defense. Sword chi penetrated to the second ring, shocking the demon hordes into retreat. Meng Hao had learned this before coming to the third ring, so he easily recognized him. Meng Hao's time sword tip pressed toward Saint Sun's soul as his three swords stopped 7 inches away, emanating frigid aura. They stared at each other in invisible struggle, not a battle of magical techniques but of divine will. Observers would see nothing. To them, everything rumbled violently, lightning crackled, the world near collapse as wind reversed. Saint Sun's soul's pupils slowly constricted. "You're not a match for me." "And you can't kill me," Meng Hao replied calmly. He looked at Meng Hao silently. What Meng Hao said was true. He had no way of killing him. Meng Hao's cultivation was strange, giving him the feeling Meng Hao could trample all the sea cities in the Milky Way Sea. As if he had some indescribable connection to this place. Saint Sun's soul raised his hand and flicked his sleeve. The three swords vanished, then reappeared circulating around him. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. The time sword tip flew back to rotate around him. "In the past, I swore never to kill a cultivator again. My sword kills only outsiders," said Sun's soul slowly. "You may stay in the Milky Way Sea, but your aura displeases me. If you've anything to do with the sea devils of the second ring, I'll use my ancestors' precious treasure and Tao-seeking power to destroy you." Meng Hao looked at him. Though they'd drawn swords moments before, he didn't find him detestable. The man was proud and spoke no falsehoods, people with unshakable principles. "I'll do as I please," said Meng Hao coolly, his eyes shining with bright, cold light. Saint Sun's soul's eyes gleamed with similar coldness. He gave Meng Hao a final look and turned to depart. Before leaving, Meng Hao said quickly, "It took great effort to collect those symbols." Sun's soul stopped and looked back. They belonged to the three sects. Meng Hao didn't respond. Instead, he slapped his bag of holding. A bottle gourd with alcohol appeared. He tossed it over. Sun's soul caught it and stared in shock. "Alcohol from my hometown," said Meng Hao. "I brought some with me." Sun's soul looked at the flagon, then back at Meng Hao. He thought for a moment, expressionless. Then he turned to leave. As he did, he flicked his sleeve. The 10,000 magical symbols he'd taken suddenly flickered as he severed his connection. They flew back to swirl around Meng Hao. Meng Hao turned into a beam of colorful light and vanished. Days later, on a small island in the third ring, Meng Hao sat cross-legged with the 10,000 magical symbols circulating around him. The parrot stood in front of him, glaring angrily. The meat jelly stood next to it. They faced off for nearly 10 breaths. 5 creatures with fur or feathers, no discussions. When Lord Fifth risks life, it's not for nothing. Lord Third wants 3 bullies, no discussions, 3 means 3. Meng Hao was silent, a pained expression on his face. After a long moment, he nodded. The parrot laughed proudly and tossed out a feather. It exploded with a pop, transforming into a mountain of demon hearts. The meat jelly spit out multicolored lights that transformed into a second mountain. Meng Hao laughed inwardly. He knew these nitwits well. Their demands were simple, but if he agreed too quickly, they'd demand more. So he pretended to struggle, pleasing them. Meng Hao looked at the 2 piles of demon hearts, over 100,000 clearly. Nearly half were mid-grade, with some high-grade ones vastly increasing value. "Can I use demon hearts to duplicate with the copper mirror?" he thought, eyes glittering. The greatest danger was the 10th Wang clan patriarch. "His cultivation is too high, I'm not a match, all I can do is escape next time." He looked at the time sword tip. "If I had 10 sword tips, I could form the lotus sword formation, maybe take him by surprise, but I lack spirit stones." He frowned, then his eyes shone. "I can duplicate wooden time swords. I should seal 7 60-year cycles of time into each, with over 100. I could unleash the third form of the lotus sword formation." He produced a wooden time sword, took a deep breath, and sealed time into it. Over the following half-month, booms echoed occasionally. Meng Hao's brow furrowed constantly. On the last day, his frown disappeared. The only wooden time sword he had floated before him. Its wood veins were visible, and the power of time within contained ripples of 7 60-year cycles. No other magical item possessed such time power. All other wooden time swords were destroyed. "This is my only one, but worth it. Only need 1 success." He pulled out the copper mirror and duplicated it. Unfortunately, duplicating a wooden time sword with 7 60-year cycles required vast spirit stones. The pain in his heart was real. He used all spirit stones in his bag to make 10 copies. Including the original, he had 11. He tried duplicating things with demon hearts. After putting 7 or 8 into the mirror, he stopped. No different than spirit stones, he thought, frowning. He'd assumed demon hearts had unique function beyond being like spirit stones. I tracked large quantities of sea demons here uniquely. Others might save a few hundred demon hearts at most. People risk their lives for a few hundred demon hearts. Contemplation appeared in his eyes. Saint Sun's soul wanted demon hearts too. At his level, he wouldn't care about millions of spirit stones, much less a few hundred demon hearts. So demon hearts must have unknown use. He rose, eyes glittering, and collected all the demon hearts. After thinking on the island, his eyes flashed. He flew into the air at top speed. Since I don't know, I'll find someone who does. As he flew, he changed appearance and reduced to nascent soul stage. After days of speed, he suddenly stopped. Not far away, he spotted a hundreds-meter-wide whirlpool containing an enormous seahorse that roared, pulses of coldness freezing everything around it. Hovering before the seahorse were two people. The man was old and hunchbacked, early nascent soul stage with wizened, pale features. He clutched a pearl emanating flame power, transforming into a rain of fire filling the entire area. Next to him was a woman wearing a mask, her visible skin young. Early core formation stage, she watched intently, deep hatred in her eyes. Seeing the old man's pale face, she said, "Senior, forget it. Find a weaker sea demon." "We've been out here for months," he said through gritted teeth. "This is the first demon. How can we let it go?" He spat blood, the pearl turning bright red. A sea of flames exploded, steam rising from the water. The seahorse, caught in flames, roared. Intense coldness exploded as it charged into the fire, extinguishing more than half. The old man's face flickered, jaw clenching. In that exact moment, a bright beam of light approached from the distance. Inside was Meng Hao. His sudden appearance shocked both. When the old man saw Meng Hao's early nascent soul stage, he relaxed but frowned. "Fellow Taoist, keep your distance. I discovered this demon. By custom, it's mine." This chapter was sponsored by Stephen Lucas. With a faint smile, Meng Hao stopped and didn't get any closer. The old man frowned and exchanged a look with the young woman. Then he focused his strength on controlling the magical items in front of him and causing the sea of flames to descend once more. The seahorse roared and a blue light spread out from its body. It be going all out. The light exploded in all directions and everywhere it passed turned into ice, even the sea of flames. The ice ceiling caused the old man's face to fill with shock. His pearl completely froze over, after which he shot backward at top speed. He grabbed the young woman, then made to leave. Unfortunately, he was injured and the blue light was too fast. At the moment, he seemed incapable of escaping. An expression of struggle appeared in the old man's eyes, but it lasted only for the time it takes a spark to fly off of a piece of flint. He saw the young woman, preparing to throw her back into the blue light to block its way. In that moment, Meng Hao lifted his hand up and pointed his finger out. The expanding blue light suddenly stopped moving, allowing the old man and the young woman to escape from the area. At the same time, Meng Hao waved his hand again, causing a wooden time sword to fly out. It shot like lightning toward the seahorse and stabbed it through in the blink of an eye. It was only one sword with 7 60-year cycles of time power, but as soon as it pierced the seahorse, a blood-curdling shriek could be heard, and the seahorse wither up. Its eyes filled with terror, and it sank down into the water. However, even as it did, Meng Hao let a certain bit of aura seep out, which caused the seahorse's eyes to go red. It instantly charged him again. The old man and the young woman watched on in astonishment as the wooden time sword stabbed it through 7 or 8 more times. The howls of the seahorse echoed out in all directions as its body rapidly withered. In a short moment, it was transformed into a desiccated corpse floating on the surface of the sea. Meng Hao neared the corpse of the seahorse, then pushed down on it. Immediately, a demon heart flew into his hand. Up in midair, the old man and the young woman saw Meng Hao with complex expressions. They were on guard, especially when it came to the shocking sword he had used. When Meng Hao looked up at them, the old man pulled the young woman into a position behind him and also rotate his cultivation base. He then clasped hands and bowed to Meng Hao. "Many thanks for your assistance, fellow Taoist," he said, slowly backing up at the same time. He was obviously terrified of Meng Hao's sword. "That mid-grade demon heart is yours. If fate ever allows us to meet again, then I'll definitely repay you." Meng Hao shook his head. "Don't be in such a hurry to leave," he said. Then he sent the demon heart flying toward the shocked old man, who caught it without even thinking about it. He saw the demon heart, then looked back at Meng Hao, his heart filling with anxiety and doubt. The young woman stared fixedly at the demon heart in the old man's hand and pant. The hatred deep in her eyes flickered again. She was obviously well aware of what the old man had almost done to her earlier. "Fellow Taoist, the old man said hesitatingly. Choosing to not beat around the bush, Meng Hao said, "The two of you have pretty strong cultivation bases. That demon heart seems to be virtually the same as a mid-grade spirit stone. Why do you care so much about it?" His words left the old man completely at a loss. The young woman also saw Meng Hao with a quizzical expression. The old man was quiet for a moment, then saw Meng Hao and said, "Fellow Taoist, don't tell me this is your first time in the Milky Way Sea." Meng Hao nodded. The old man took a deep breath, then muttered a few things to himself as he put the demon heart away. "You're right," he then said. "The spiritual energy in this demon heart is similar to a mid-grade spirit stone. However, one mid-grade spirit stone couldn't buy you any demon hearts at all. In the three sects Seahold, there are special locations that purchase demon hearts. As for the exact value, it fluctuates. If I recall correctly, when I last left Seahold, one low-grade demon heart was worth 500 low-grade spirit stones. There were even some places that would pay 1,000. When Meng Hao heard this, it didn't matter that he had such a high cultivation base. His mind filled with a roaring sound anyway. His bag of holding contained about 89,000 low-grade demon hearts. If you calculated it out, they were worth 89,000 low-grade spirit stones. That number sent great waves crashing about inside of Meng Hao's mind. His brain trembled and he almost couldn't believe it. During his entire life, he had never possessed so many spirit stones. He immediately breathed heavily. "How much did you say?" he blurted without even thinking about it. "Low-grade demon hearts range in value from several hundred to 1,000 spirit stones," said the old man. He didn't seem to think anything about Meng Hao's reaction was strange. Anyone who heard about the matter for the first time would be astonished. "What about mid-grade demon hearts?" Meng Hao followed up immediately. The old man hesitated for a moment and rubbed his bag of holding, but continued on with his explanation. "Their value fluctuates too, but not too much. One mid-grade demon heart is worth about 10,000 low-grade spirit stones." Meng Hao's mouth went so dry that he couldn't speak. Within his bag of holding were more than 30,000 mid-grade demon hearts. After he calculated the number, his mind once again filled with roaring. Now he suddenly understood why people risk their lives to come here. "I'm rich," he thought. "I really am super rich." Meng Hao couldn't control the excitement that exploded out within him. The fact that his lifelong desire had suddenly been fulfilled caused his heart to begin to pound rapidly. The old man saw Meng Hao and continued, "Of course, there are even more rare demon hearts, the high-grade variety. I'm actually not sure exactly how much they are worth because they only appear in auctions. However, I do remember that at the last auction I attended, a high-grade demon heart was sold for the incredible price of 670,000 spirit stones." When Meng Hao heard that, he went even more wild with joy. He had nearly 10,000 such high-grade demon hearts in his bag of holding. All of a sudden, he felt an enormous golden ingot had fallen directly onto him. Moments later, though, his face suddenly flickered when he remembered that among the 7 or 8 demon hearts he had used to test out the duplication powers of the copper mirror, 4 was high-grade demon hearts. He suddenly felt a twisting stab of pain in his heart. "That means I yet again wasted more than 2 million spirit stones. Fudge, that's..." He had the sudden impulse to scream and curse. After taking a few deep breaths, he told himself that it wasn't any worse than the matter with the 2,000 ultra-high-grade spirit stones. After a bit of time, he calmed himself. "Is there a type of demon heart even more precious than what you've already mentioned?" he asked. "Something similar to ultra-high-grade spirit stones." He happened to have exactly just such a demon heart in his bag of holding, the one he had acquired from the white-bone lily giant. The man thought for a moment, then replied, "No such thing exists. Well, perhaps my cultivation base isn't high enough, or maybe I just have never encountered someone with access to such riches. However, in the third ring, there is something called a white-bone demon heart. They are incredibly rare precious treasures. Something like that would be priceless." Meng Hao's heart trembled. He was almost certain that the demon heart in his bag of holding, the one that was the size of an infant's hand, was the white-bone demon heart that the old man had just mentioned. "One more thing," said the old man, "and probably the most important. In the 3 sects Seahold, most items can only be purchased with demon hearts. That's another reason why I value them so much." With this mid-grade demon heart, I now have enough saved up to acquire fortification pill powder. With that, my apprentice can safely continue on through the core formation stage. Having finished speaking, the old man backed up and bowed once again to Meng Hao. Meng Hao gave a faint smile and nodded. He was in an excellent mood now, and the only thing he could think about was going to Seahold to trade his demon hearts for spirit stones. With so many spirit stones, he thought, I feel quite confident that I can duplicate 100 wooden time swords that contain 7 60-year cycles of time. Then I can unleash the third form of the lotus sword formation. He took a deep breath and suppressed his excitement. He well knew that no one other than him would ever be able to possess 100 wooden time swords. Be it in the past or in the future, it would be something completely rare, perhaps even absolutely unique. It was only because of the copper mirror and its heaven-defying duplication ability. Without that, it would be impossible to forge 100 wooden time swords. Every time he attempted to seal time into the swords, a failure would leave the sword completely destroyed. Furthermore, the rate of failure was simply far too high. Actually, I might even be able to duplicate the time sword tip, he thought, the brightness in his eyes growing even brighter. He was just about to turn and leave when suddenly, the young woman gritted her teeth and then, seemingly throwing all caution to the wind, clasped hands and bowed toward Meng Hao. Senior, she said, please allow me to offer my respects. Meng Hao had already begun to leave when he heard the young woman's words and looked back. Simultaneously, the old man's face flickered, and he reached an arm out to hold back the young woman. A cold gleam of killing intent appeared in his eyes. Fellow Taoist, my apprentice is immature, please forgive her. Farewell. With that, he grabbed the young woman and prepared to leave. He had already sealed her cultivation base, making it impossible for her to speak. However, her eyes radiated despair. Almost she wished she could die as the man pulled her away. Meng Hao frowned. He had already realized that these two people were not apprentice and master. In fact, based on his experiences, he had already formed some speculations about the old man's true motivations. Originally, he didn't want to interfere, but after seeing the despair in the young woman's eyes, he suddenly recalled the image of another woman. The look in her eye back in the Black Civ sect blessed land was exactly the same as this, he thought. 1. It was in the Black Civ sect blessed land that Meng Hao arrived just in time to prevent Su Qing from being raped. Hold on a moment, he said. Sighing to himself, he suddenly appeared directly in front of the old man. The old man's face flickered again. He hadn't sensed anything at all just now. Moments ago, Meng Hao had clearly been behind him, but now, all of a sudden, here he was. The old man's heart thumped. Let her finish, said Meng Hao. The old man had just given him some valuable information, so Meng Hao wasn't willing to simply attack him. The old man stood there silently for a moment, then loosened his grip. A tremor ran through the young woman as her cultivation base was restored. An unprecedentedly bright light appeared in her eyes, a light filled with hope. She once again gave Meng Hao a deep bow. Senior, it's your first time to the Milky Way Sea. There are many things you don't know, and the three sects Seahold has very strict rules. Regarding where to stay, outsiders would have a very hard time figuring out matters on their own. Senior, I grew up in Seahold and know the place inside and out. If it would please you, I'm willing to act as your guide. I can save you a lot of time if you're willing. Chapter 660. The alcohol is quite strong. The woman's words caused the old man's face to grow very unsightly. He once again clasped hands to Meng Hao. Fellow Taoist, my apprentice doesn't understand the way of things. Please don't take offense. Seahold might be large, but everything there is handled in an open and clear way. Once you go, fellow Taoist, you will naturally understand. The young woman bit her lower lip and said nothing more. She simply gazed at Meng Hao with a pleading look. The old man was starting to get a bit worried. Fellow Taoist, he continued, I answered all your questions without holding anything back. My apprentice is merely homesick. However, if we cultivators wish to make progress, must step out of our comfort zones. That's why I took her out into the world to gain some experience. Meng Hao looked over the young woman and the old man, then sighed inwardly. In the cultivation world, the law of the jungle prevails. I can't do anything about that. However, he said, shaking his head, when it comes to our actions and decisions, there is an unwritten truth. Habitual unjust behavior can prevent you from reaching spirit severing. Many thanks for helping me achieve my aim, said the old man, reaching out to grab the young woman. Senior, continued the young woman, when you had a weak cultivation base, didn't you ever have a benefactor that was willing to help you? Before she could finish speaking, the old man's hand latched onto her, and she immediately became like a puppet, capable only of shedding tears filled with despair and the desire to die. When Meng Hao heard her words, he suddenly said, "Did I say you could leave?" The words were simple, but as soon as the old man heard them, his mind trembled. The nascent soul inside of him trembled, and beads of sweat broke out on his forehead. He immediately stopped in place and slowly turned around, an expression of disbelief and shock on his face as he saw Meng Hao. It was in that instant that he realized that the cultivation base of the person in front of him far exceeded his own. Meng Hao's voice was cool as he said, "This young woman has a unique physique suitable for certain dual-party cultivation techniques that extract the yin to strengthen the yang. Your goal is nothing more than to use that power to break through a cultivation-based blockage." With that, he lifted his right hand, causing 10 mid-grade demon hearts to fly toward the old man. "Normally I wouldn't interfere in such a matter," he continued slowly, "but having encountered this young woman, it seems the two of us are connected by destiny. Thank you for answering my questions just now. Take these demon hearts and leave." The old man struggled inwardly for a moment, but in the end, released the girl and collected up the demon hearts. With a bitter smile, he clasped hands and bowed to Meng Hao, then hurried off into the distance. Meng Hao's cultivation base was beyond his comprehension, and the gap between the two of them far too large. The old man didn't even have the nerve to feel resentment, but rather simply resigned himself to his fate. As the old man made his way off into the distance, tears flowed ceaselessly down the young woman's cheeks, and she bowed over and over again to Meng Hao. "Thank you for your kindness in rescuing me, Senior. I grew up on my own in Seahold and will spare no effort to aid you." The gratitude she felt was clearly visible in her eyes. She had just evaded a huge calamity, and as a result, her voice quavered as she spoke. It seemed that all the courage she had shown just now completely vanished and turned into weakness. "What's your name?" asked Meng Hao, looking her over. "Wei Li. Junior's name is Wei Li," she replied softly, lowering her head to conceal the sorrow she felt because of her name. 1. Wei Li's name in Chinese is Chinese letter Wei Li. It's kind of a made-up name. Wei means only. Li means leave or depart. The name sounds sad, perhaps to indicate that some sorrowful event occurred in her past. Meng Hao nodded, but did not ask for any further details. Then, he flicked his sleeve, sweeping up the young woman to fly off into the direction of the three sects Seahold, notated on the map he possessed. Wei Li hesitated for a moment as she flew alongside Meng Hao. She looked around at the mist that surrounded them and felt the incredible speed with which they were moving, something she had never experienced before. Her voice soft, she finally said, "Senior, are you a rogue cultivator?" "Why do you ask that?" replied Meng Hao calmly. "In the third ring, all the nascent soul cultivators are either rogue cultivators or belong to sects and clans that provide special flight treasures. Such treasures make it possible to avoid a lot of trouble and also allow you to meditate and practice cultivation while traveling." Wei Li hesitated again, worried that she might somehow offend Meng Hao with her words. "Furthermore, upon entering Seahold, if you have such a flight treasure, you won't be interrogated." "So that's how it is," said Meng Hao. After a moment's thought, he said, "Well, after I get to Seahold, I guess I'll just have to buy a few." He realized that he truly didn't have any sort of special flight treasure. Considering that it was possible to practice cultivation while riding such a treasure, Meng Hao started to feel somewhat excited. Wei Li's eyes went wide, and she almost went on to tell Meng Hao that such flight treasures were expensive. However, she didn't dare to actually open her mouth on the subject. Then she thought about how he had casually produced 10 mid-grade demon hearts, and she realized that he most likely had an incredible social standing. After a moment, she looked over Meng Hao's plain and unadorned robe, then said, "Senior, you should probably change into a different set of clothing. In Seahold, you can purchase Taoist garments crafted from sea demons. According to the rumors, the highest quality garments can even resist an attack from the spirit severing level. If you prefer simple and unadorned clothing, Seahold has those too. However, regardless of whether it's in terms of the quality of material or the defensive capabilities, such garments are unique to the Milky Way Sea. Every year, people come from various outside sects and clans to have them custom-made." Meng Hao looked down at his robes and nodded. He had never really paid much attention to his attire, but after listening to the young woman's words, he realized that they made sense. Yes, when we get there I'll buy a few sets." "Senior, there's also the matter of bags of holding. In the Milky Way Sea, you can get special holding treasures with a capacity 100 times normal. Some even have other mysterious properties. In fact, the highest quality holding items can even store spiritual energy. That way, if you ever run low on magical power, you will have at least one chance to open your bag of holding. Such items exist, asked Meng Hao. It all sounded so new and interesting to him. He nodded. Okay, when I get there, I'll buy a few. Senior, do you have any voice transmission talismans on you? None. You should definitely buy some of the voice transmission talismans available in the sea hold. That way, you can communicate directly with anyone on the outside, no matter where you are in the Milky Way Sea. All right, I'll buy several. Senior, considering the level of your cultivation base, you probably don't need magical rings, but I still suggest that you buy a few. Excellent, I'll definitely purchase a handful. Senior, if you plan to stay in the third ring for a long time, you might want to buy an immortal's cave in the city. Of course, the prices vary depending on the location. I'll buy the best one. As they traveled, Wei Li continued to evaluate Meng Hao from top to bottom. If it were any other situation, Meng Hao wouldn't really pay attention. However, considering how many demon hearts he had in his bag of holding, and the number of spirit stones he could trade them for, his heart surged with joy. Filled with the feeling of being rich and imposing, and accompanied by someone describing all the amazing things he could buy, roused his spirit. He flicked his sleeve and decided to buy everything. Several days later, Meng Hao peered at Seahold from some distance away as they approached. He had already lost track of how many things Wei Li had described to him, nor could he remember exactly what he had said he intended to buy. However, Wei Li was very professional, and she had long since taken out a jade slip to keep meticulous records. Up ahead, the Seahold looked matchlessly huge. It was like an ancient sea beast, slumbering upon the surface of the water. At the moment, it was evening, and the city was ablaze with lights. A cursory examination left Meng Hao with the impression that at least 100,000 cultivators were inside. The area was surrounded by patrolling cultivators of the three sects. Also visible in the middle of the city was a huge tower, adorned with resplendently glowing pearls. They also emanated invisible ripples that no one but Meng Hao could see, which spread out to cover the entire city. The entire city was surrounded by a towering wall, part of which stretched down below the surface of the water. The wall was completely black and looked very somber and ominous. Vicious-looking spikes encircled the city, upon which were impaled the dried-up corpses of sea demons. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. Within Seahold he could sense, at the very least, hundreds of restrictive spell formations. Clearly, if he attempted to charge directly into the city, it would be impossible. If they were activated, these restrictive spell formations could easily destroy a spirit-severing cultivator. If that were all there were to it, it might not be a big deal. However, Meng Hao could also sense an aura deep within the city that caused his scalp to grow numb. It'd be partly the aura of a cultivator, and partly the aura of a magical item. It was impossible to distinguish clearly, but Meng Hao was certain that whatever thing emitted this aura vastly exceeded the power of spirit severing. After glancing the city over, his eyes came to rest on the huge tower in the middle of the city. In that very moment, red-robed Saint Sun Soul sat cross-legged in that very tower, meditating. Suddenly, his eyes opened. His gaze passed out from within the tower until it reached Meng Hao off in the distance. Although Meng Hao had changed his appearance, he still recognized him. The two of them were separated by quite a difference, but they could both sense each other looking at each other. After a moment, they retracted their gazes. Seeing that Meng Hao had stopped in midair, Wei Li saw him and said, "Senior." After a moment she continued, "Senior, do you have an identity medallion? If you do, then you can just enter directly. If you don't, well, that will be a bit more troublesome." Meng Hao frowned. He did not have an identity medallion, and currently they were standing directly in front of the city gate. Inside, 3 men sat cross-legged, meditating. In front of them stood a dozen or so cultivators clutching command medallions. Occasionally, they would glance around with cold expressions. It was already evening, but there was still quite a line of people outside, waiting to enter the Seahold. When Meng Hao and Wei Li arrived, the 3 old men all opened their eyes at the same time. In that moment, Meng Hao could sense the fluctuating ripples coming from nearby restrictive spell formations. He knew that if he showed even the slightest bit of malice, those spell formations would activate. "Senior," said Wei Li, "if you have no identity medallion, then I can go into the city first to buy one for you. Unfortunately, the price will be quite high. Also, I will only be able to get the most common type of identity medallion, which will cause problems later." However, even as she was in the middle of speaking, a bright beam of light suddenly flew out from within the city. Inside was a beautiful woman wearing a pink garment. She was elegant and poised, and as soon as she appeared, the cultivators in the city gate bent at the waist to bow deeply. Respects Madame Lin, too. When addressing a woman as Madam in this way, the surname used would be that of the husband. For example, many chapters ago Meng Li was addressed as Madame Fang. In this case, it indicates that this woman's husband is surnamed Lin. When Saint Sun Soul was introduced in chapter 656, we learned that he is also surnamed Lin. From this, it seems pretty obvious that the woman is his wife. At the same time, respectful expressions appeared on the faces of the other cultivators in the area. One after another, they clasped hands and bowed. Greetings, Madame Lin. The poised and stately woman nodded and smiled. She passed through the crowds of people until she reached Meng Hao. As for Wei Li, she nervously backed up. Meng Hao's expression was completely normal as he watched the woman everyone called Madame Lin approaching. She stopped in front of him and, as everyone watched, gave him a curtsying bow. She didn't speak, but she smiled and handed a gold-colored command medallion to Meng Hao. Someone asked me to pass you a message. The alcohol is quite strong. She smiled and gave Meng Hao a deep look, then turned to leave. As she walked away, everyone in the crowd turned to look at Meng Hao. Wei Li stared blankly at him, eyes wide. This chapter was sponsored by Amatofik Ahmed Fuad, Gorgons, Tjandra Johans, and Frank Anthony. Chapter 661, Seeing Xianxia again. As the elegant woman left, the surrounding cultivators cried out in surprise. First-rank Seahold medallion. All eyes fixed on Meng Hao's gold-colored command medallion. A first-rank Seahold medallion. Only the three saints of the three sects can give out such a gift. I've rarely seen such a medallion. This person must be an incredibly honored guest. As the buzz of conversation spread, Meng Hao looked down at the command medallion. It was pure gold, with the image of a Seahold carved on its surface. The other side bore the characters, Sun Soul Society. A faint pressure emanated from it. Wei Li's eyes were wide with disbelief. She followed Meng Hao through the crowd into the Seahold, where cultivators of the three sects immediately clasped hands and bowed respectfully. Even after they entered the city proper, Wei Li's mind buzzed with questions. She took a deep breath and looked at Meng Hao. He grew more mysterious to her by the moment. At last she spoke, Senior, sir, don't tell me you know Saint Sun Soul. No, not really, Meng Hao replied, looking around. Evening had fallen and the city bustled like a boiling cauldron. Wei Li walked on, unconvinced. That's impossible. If you don't know him, why did Madame Lin give you a Seahold medallion? She's one of Saint Sun Soul's two beloved and rarely appears in public. Meng Hao glanced back with an enigmatic smile. I gave him a flagon of alcohol once. Wei Li's eyes grew serious. The earlier events seemed bizarre, yet believing Meng Hao's claim seemed equally fantastic. Forget about it, Meng Hao said, smiling. Now, why haven't you taken me to one of those places that buy demon hearts? Despite his casual tone, Wei Li grew nervous. She quickly agreed and began her explanation. Senior, there are 3 locations in the Seahold that specialize in demon hearts. They are the 3 sea pavilions of the Sea Divinity sect, the Flying Immortal sect, and the Sun Soul Society. The prices might not be highest, but they're always fair. No matter how many demon hearts you bring, they can convert them into spirit stones. Beyond the 3 sects, there's the Milky Way auction house, which holds auctions. Other shops throughout the city also buy demon hearts. In the Milky Way Sea, you can often buy items directly with demon hearts. In fact, Senior, if you purchase many items, I'd recommend keeping your demon hearts. The majority of items in the Seahold can only be purchased with demon hearts. Meng Hao thought for a moment, then nodded. First, let's go somewhere that sells flying magical items. Senior, what type do you wish to purchase? Asked Wei Li. The best type, Meng Hao declared. Wei Li's eyes shone, and she led him away. She was very familiar with the area. As evening fell, she guided him through the Seahold for roughly the time of an incense stick. Eventually, they stopped outside a particularly impressive pavilion. It was built to resemble an enormous plum-colored airship. Although night was falling, the entire building glowed with resplendent light. Ripples spread outward, and in front of the doors stood 2 gigantic stone killins, mighty and extraordinary. The main door was roughly 15 meters tall and constructed of deep-sea driftwood. Every bit of building material seemed carefully selected and imbued with abstruse meaning. Magical symbols filled with strong spiritual energy covered it. Almost anyone would be shocked by the level of luxury. There are 11 magical flight shops in Seahold. The best is the Flying Immortal Sect's Cloudburst Pavilion. Its items are sought after even by outside clans and sects. Wei Li grew excited. In her world, the Cloudburst Pavilion was beyond her reach, let alone a place to purchase such treasures. The cost of such items far exceeded her imagination. Normally, she could only glance in from outside. Now she had a chance to enter, and it thrilled her. Meng Hao studied the Cloudburst Pavilion from outside. The interior was decorated with extravagance. Lamplight illuminated everything, and the floors were paved with spirit stones. 4 or 5 customers walked about inside, proud expressions on their faces, listening to the Flying Immortal Sect disciples introduce the various magical flight items. From their clothing they were clearly wealthy and respected. At a glance, they came from great sects and clans, definitely not rogue cultivators. Sitting cross-legged at the entryway were 2 old men wearing brocaded robes. Their faces glowed with health. Shockingly, their cultivation bases were at the early nascent soul stage. Having nascent soul cultivators as guards would deter any thieves. Inside, 3 more Flying Immortal Sect disciples were visible, 2 men and a woman. They chatted happily, and occasionally the woman chuckled. Her eyes sparkled enticingly, giving off an enchanting air. Yet they all ignored Meng Hao and Wei Li standing outside. They were accustomed to people gazing in with envy and admiration. Meng Hao was about to enter when laughter and chatter sounded behind him. A group of cultivators appeared, clustered around a woman, heading directly toward the shop. Everyone on the road stepped aside respectfully. Each cultivator in the group was a chosen of the 3 sects, figures the others would never offend. Whether by dress or bearing, they were imposing. Yet these chosen smiled, laughed, and gushed flattery toward the woman they escorted. The woman was beautiful and delicate. Her eyes occasionally flashed with a captivating allure. When the surrounding cultivators caught sight of her smile, their hearts raced with eagerness. Next to her walked a young man with slanted eyebrows and eyes that sparkled like stars. He was handsome and wore a long white robe, looking dashing with an extraordinary jade-like face. "Xianxia," he said, smiling at the beautiful woman. "This is the Cloudburst Pavilion of the Flying Immortal Sect. Please step inside." His cool gaze swept over Meng Hao and Wei Li as he passed. The 2 old men at the entryway immediately opened their eyes and rose to their feet. The 3 disciples rushed forward. They all bowed to the young man with deep respect. "Greetings, junior leader." The young man nodded. His arrogant expression softened as he turned to look at the woman named Xianxia. As they entered the shop, the 4 or 5 customers inside quickly clasped hands and bowed deeply. While hubbub filled the shop, Meng Hao stood calmly outside. A faint, enigmatic smile tugged at his lips. Wei Li gazed at the woman named Xianxia with respect and envy. What a coincidence, Meng Hao thought. I never expected to run into her here. This woman was Jade Xianxia, whose promissory note Meng Hao still possessed. 1. Jade Xianxia is the Jai clan member whose chest Meng Hao face-planted into before going into the Demon Immortal Sect. He met her first when she was facing off against Fang Yu. Later, he blackmailed her into taking him to the corpse of her fellow clan member who he had killed. Like many other South Heaven cultivators, she owes him spirit stones from the time when they were all descending into the 4th plane of the primordial demon immortal plane. "Come on," he said coolly. "Let's go in." Wei Li followed him into the shop. Nobody paid them the slightest attention. Everyone circled about the chosen, respectful smiles on their faces. Meng Hao waited a moment, but no one greeted him. Not a single person even glanced at them. Meng Hao's expression darkened. "So this is how the Cloudburst Pavilion receives customers, huh?" His voice echoed through the pavilion, drawing everyone's attention. Even Jai Xianxia looked over, though she couldn't recognize Meng Hao because of his changed appearance. The junior leader frowned, but continued to interact with Jai Xianxia, occasionally pointing out various magical flight items. The 2 old men noticed his furrowed brow. Their hearts raced. Impatient, one of them pointed to the female Flying Immortal Sect disciple. "Go deal with it," he said. The woman had been excited by the chosen's arrival, hoping her looks might open opportunities. Now, having heard the old man's words, resentment bloomed in her heart. She didn't dare refuse, so, face grim and irritated, she walked over to Meng Hao and Wei Li. She glanced at them, certain they didn't merit looking at and were here only to cause mischief. "What kind of magical flight item do you want?" she asked coldly. "The cheapest magical item here costs 50 low-grade demon hearts. If you can't afford it, please leave." She couldn't see Meng Hao's cultivation base, but this was the cloudburst pavilion of the flying immortal sect. Even a high cultivation base would impress her little here. In this place, nobody would dare make a scene. Wei Li was upset and nervous. She looked at Meng Hao. "Show me the most expensive thing you have," Meng Hao said coolly, his expression unchanged. "The most expensive," the woman replied, laughing. She didn't bother hiding her ridicule. She had worked here for years and seen far too many people like this, believing themselves incredible. They always left ashen-faced and depressed. She laughed coldly. "The most expensive item we have costs 5,000 low-grade demon hearts. Fellow Taoist, care to see it?" Meng Hao nodded. "Sure, why not?" "Well, a treasure like that isn't for casual viewing," she replied. "If you want to see it according to our regulations, you must pay a 30% down payment. Fellow Taoist, do you really want to look?" Ridicule laced her tone. At the same moment she noticed the chosen heading toward the second floor. She grew anxious. "The door is over there, fellow Taoist," she said. "You can see yourself out." She turned to catch up with the chosen.